shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, the very top of the morning to you. I am Mark Dolan. It is 2 minutes past 6 in the morning, and this is Talk Breakfast. A big 4 hours to come. The Aston Villa-Israel football row rages on, with the news today that our Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood knew all about the ban. It had been signed off by her, so just how much did the Prime Minister know in what looks to be a fresh new scandal engulfing the government? Talking of scandal, the grand old Duke of York is no more. Prince Andrew is as close to being a normal, ordinary human being, just a regular bloke down the pub, having lost his many titles, including membership of the Order of the Garter, and he is no longer the Duke of York. But should he cease to be a prince as well? And should he be turfed out of the 30-bedroom Royal Lodge? Has King Charles done enough to deal with his black sheep brother? Talking of black sheep of the family, what about Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, as she prepares her doomsday November budget? Is she planning a U-turn on the hated farmers' inheritance tax? We'll be speaking to a leading farmer shortly to explain the full extent of the implications of this tax and why it's so devastating for the farming community. And in a Talk Breakfast exclusive, we'll be speaking live on the show to the school teacher who lost his job for putting up a flag of this country. That is live on the show later on this morning. And this is not a drill. The monologue is back. In today's Dolan's Dispatch, 3 words have destroyed Britain: avoiding community tensions. Dangerous extremism has been legitimised by the media, by state institutions, by the police, by local authorities. Well, the genie is out of the bottle, and I'm not sure it's going back in. That's a special Dolan's Dispatch at 8 a.m. this morning. Do not miss it. And my priority for the next 4 hours is getting your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. And let me tell you that Kieran is on the phones today and he's coming in hot. He's had 3 coffees and an elixir given to him by my executive producer, Dean Spencer. I don't know what it is. It's a substance. I think it's echinacea. It looks legal to me. We've got a dream team today, I've got to say. We've got Phil Dave pressing the buttons. He's overqualified, I can't lie, and costing us a fortune. Have we got a budget for Phil Dave on the buttons? And don't forget that this is not just a radio show. It is TV as well, so if you want to watch us, then just go to YouTube and search Talk, and we will come up. And I look sensational today, not because of natural good looks or genetics, but Neha, who is pressing the buttons. She's the vision mixer and TV director of Talk Breakfast. So why don't you give us a listen on DAB+, or you can check us out on the internet or in app, or you can watch us on TV. Talk on YouTube, and as the saying goes, let's talk. And don't forget, you can text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Book your place on the show right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the big stories of the day. And let's take a look at today's front pages. Daily Express, Prince Andrew, I will no longer use Duke of York title. And former hostage shocked to my core at bid to ban Israeli fans. Don't forget, that's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 8 o'clock. Daily Mirror exclusive. Gaza, I just can't give up boozing. And royal bombshell, Andrew quits Duke title. iWeekend, Palace forces Andrew to give up his titles and sends him into exile. Daily Mail, I had breast implants, not me. That's not an exclusive, folks. I don't need them. I have a natural bosom. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll know that. Just go to YouTube and search Talk. I have a natural cleavage, I can't lie. I'm very lucky like that. I get that from my father. No, this is Nadine Dorries, who says, I had breast implants, then bitterly regretted it. But when I had an op to remove them, the surgeon did something so shocking I'm still traumatised. We'll definitely get to the bottom of that very, very shortly, or the top. Andrew falls on his sword is the big news on the front page of the Daily Mail. Under intense pressure from the King, he finally agrees to relinquish dukedom and membership of the Order of the Garter. The Guardian, Epstein, Andrew and me, Virginia Giuffre in her own words, of course, that's the story, that's the elephant in the room. That is why Andrew has agreed to relinquish his titles. We can't leave welfare untouched, says Rachel Reeves. Treasury considers end to tax breaks on cars for disabled people. That's the Motability scheme, which could save £1 billion in the November budget if the scheme is curtailed by the Chancellor, who, let's be honest, has got to find the money from somewhere. Tackle online fake news or risk riots, MPs warn. I wonder whether that's just censorship by the back door. Daily Telegraph, Andrew forced to give up his royal titles. The Times, Andrew gives up titles. The lie that was finally too much for Charles. This is Kate Manzi, who, of course, is the brilliant royal editor of the Times newspaper. When proof emerged that Prince Andrew had lied about his contact with a convicted sex offender, the clock was ticking for the royal, formerly known as the Duke of York. And the FT Weekend, Chancellor weighs Brit ISA revival. Chancellor Rachel Reeves is looking to boost UK share ownership by overhauling ISAs with potential measures including a minimum holding of British companies and a stamp duty tax break. Well, for reaction to those stories and many more, I'm delighted to welcome the brilliant comedian and broadcaster, Paul Cox. Good morning, Coxie.
Good morning, Mr. Dolan. How are you doing?
I'm very well, and you're coming in hot this morning as well. Look
I
at
am.
you. You're glistening.
Thank you. I mean, it is a ridiculous time of day, Mark, but I feel alive. Genuinely feel alive. I've had 2 coffees, 2 hours sleep, and your face, and I'm ready.
Well, you don't need much more than that. My face is a natural stimulant. And we've got to get to the big stories of the day. It's hard to know which one. We'll come, I think, to the Aston Villa-Israel football row in just a moment. But let's talk about the King's brother, Prince Andrew. Well, it was just inevitable, wasn't it? Just a matter of time before he would cease to be the Duke of York.
Yeah, I bet he's sweating now. It is. It's a dangerous mix, isn't it? Ignorance, stupidity, arrogance. And you know, I'm a big royalist, Mark. I've always been a big fan of the royal family. I don't suppose that would come as a surprise to anyone who's watched me on the TV over the last few years. But Andrew is kind of an outlier here, and someone that I can't find anyone now across broadcast media that has got anything positive to say about Andrew. He's talked himself into this mess. He didn't need to. He absolutely didn't need to. He could have just come out and said, like anybody could have done associated to Epstein, and said, at the time, he was a powerful guy, he was around the scene, he offered things, we got involved. But lying and making up stories and saying he had no contact with him, they're easily going to be discovered as if they didn't... There is a naivete about it, but I don't think it's that innocent. I think there is a genuine ignorance. I think that Andrew thought when he did that Mateless interview that he was going to be able to get away with it in some way. Yeah. And he's exposed himself, and now he's kind of lost everything. And I always think with a role like Duke of York and Prince Andrew's role is that it's very easy, really. And I'm sure you've got to sacrifice a lot of things, but in terms of a life by comparison to yours and I and the average man and woman on the street, it's all you've got to do is really just keep your head down, do your duty, and you will live a very luxurious life. So I don't understand why he's got himself into this position other than arrogance.
You're right, it's not complicated, is it? Keep your nose clean and you'll have a life of privilege and fame and position that we can only dream of. It is unfortunate. It's hard to know what went wrong with this guy who was famously the Queen's favourite son.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where it started to go wrong. There is a certain amount of entitlement. I mean, I would naturally say there's entitlement because he's a member of the royal family, but he is genuinely feels entitled to everything you read about him. It feels as if he believes genuinely that everything that he gets, he should get. He feels ungrateful for it, and he doesn't seem to be able to accept that this role is a huge privilege. And, you know, it is a shame. I personally want the royal family to do well. I mean, we've all got problems. We've all got skeletons, I'm sure, and they live their life.
I've got plenty of it, Prince Andrews. I've got Prince Andrews in the team today. I'm just looking through the glass now.
There's some absolute wrong-uns through there, Mark.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why they're that side.
Executive producer Dean Spencer is Randy Andy 2.0, can't lie. NGL.
He's lovely, Dean, actually.
Of course he is. He's one of the good guys. But I will be stripping him of his titles later in the show.
Please do.
But yeah, I mean, it is obviously hubris, isn't it? It's entitlement, and there are allegations in Virginia Giuffre's book. Of course, this tragic woman took her own life some months ago, that she felt that he was entitled to her body, that there was a sense of entitlement that she would have to give herself to him. Now, of course, it's important to stress that he's challenged those accusations and completely rejected them, and he refutes all the allegations. Is that a bone of contention, the fact that Andrew has been committed of zero crimes whatsoever? What's the guy done wrong other than exercise poor judgment?
Well, this is the thing. There is quite a dark and sinister story that sits behind here, and you're absolutely right. He's never been convicted of anything. He's never been found guilty in a court of anything whatsoever. However, the way he's conducted himself leads any sort of right-thinking person to believe there's more to this than meets the eye. Now, if there is absolutely no dodginess going on. I'm trying to find the right words not to get myself in trouble. There's no dodginess going on here.
Yeah. No serious case to answer. No smoking gun.
Then he could just have said, hey, look, I got myself into a situation I'd rather not have done, didn't realise he was this kind of chap, and then I walked away. Or I didn't walk away, and we continued to contact for a while. I wish that hadn't have happened. It would have gone away. But the lies make me believe that there's more to this than meets the eye.
Well, listen, next up, should Prince Andrew cease to be Prince Andrew? Should he be Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Does he need to become a complete civilian in order to atone for his alleged crimes and, as Paul said, his conduct around those allegations? And how much did the Home Secretary know about the Israel fans Aston Villa football ban? We'll discuss that next.
What kind of message does this send out that you may not go to Birmingham as a Jew if you happen to support this football team? Is this what it's come to, that we can't manage to police a football match in order to allow both sides to attend? It is the wrong decision. It must be overturned. Otherwise, the message about what this country is, where it's headed, is in completely the wrong direction.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming to your calls in just a moment. The Times newspaper, Andrew gives up titles. Daily Telegraph, Andrew forced to relinquish his royal titles. And Epstein, Andrew and me, Virginia Giuffre, in her own words, an exclusive from the Guardian newspaper. Paul, has the King done enough to stamp his foot of authority on this situation? Does he need to go further? Should Prince Andrew cease to be a prince?
Yes, he probably has. He done enough? Probably not, actually. We see these notices that come out from Andrew, giving him the opportunity to speak on his own behalf about how magnanimous he is and how he's done this for king and country. I think, really and truly, if this was a commercial business that relied on its reputation, the king or the CEO would be in front of a camera saying, this isn't good enough, this is not what we represent, and we're distancing ourselves from this. I know it's a family, but at the end of the day, it's sort of UK PLC, isn't it?
Well, it is, and Prince, it's a brand, isn't it? And it's a royal brand.
Yes, and if you want to inspire people and you want it to be legitimate and have its authenticity, you can't afford to have this type of shenanigans just lurking in the background.
Most definitely. Also in the papers today, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mood, is, I've got to say, being held to account for the fact that she knew about the banning of Israel football fans from coming to this Aston Villa game next month. Now, the government are furiously trying to do a reverse ferret on that one and make sure that the fans are able to attend. But what does it tell us about the state of this government? That we've got, once again, another self-inflicted political crisis. If you're Home Secretary, you do not sign off on a decision to prevent 1,000 football fans from another country to come to the UK because they wouldn't be safe. Let's get a reaction from Michael in Morecambe, which is a beautiful seaside town in Lancashire. Hello, Michael. Top of the morning, Michael. Now, we're just having a bit of trouble connecting with Michael. We will return to that very, very shortly. What I will say is that it is obviously a huge talking point, this issue about Israeli fans being banned from a game at Aston Villa. And the reason why, Paul, is because it's not about football.
No.
This is about what's happened to our country and what's happened to our society, that Israeli, brackets, Jewish fans were not deemed to be safe coming to England's second city to watch the beautiful game. Exactly that. But it's been framed entirely the other way. The city is not safe to have their minute, is the way it's been framed, because it's been the whole nettle's been captured by the independent MP, which is quite clearly a Muslim guy. Yeah. And it feels, and it would appear to me, that anti-Semitism has a Labour problem. Every single story that has anything to do with Israel or Jewish people, they get it wrong every single time. And they keep talking as if they want to keep Jewish people safe and people to feel safe in our country, but they don't behave in a way that would reflect that. It's a sort of, if I'm being kind, of cognitive dissonance from Labour. They are behaving in a way that is juxtaposed to what they say every single time. Most definitely. Vernon is in Staffordshire. Good morning, Vernon. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Greetings, Mark. Mark, my question to you is really simple. When when are we going to stop bending down to the Muslim local community in my home city of Birmingham? When?
Well, you're absolutely right. And that is the topic, Vernon, of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 8 a.m. I'm going to say that 3 words have destroyed this country, which is avoiding community tensions. This is political correctness, and it's made our country a more dangerous place.
In the last riots, when they were going on, West Midlands Police admitted to talking to community leaders who decided there's no need to police the so-called riots that were coming. It's got to stop, Mark. This is my football club. This is my city, and it can't be tolerated.
Does it still feel like your city?
No, it doesn't, Mark. It is a very unwelcoming place. There are parts of Birmingham that are ghettos. They're no-go areas. Sorry to offend fellow Brummies, but it needs to be spoken, and I won't be silenced. I'm not having it anymore. It needs to be called out.
Vernon, what would you say to figures on the left who argue that the idea that Britain has cultural ghettos is a myth and fake news? What would you say to them?
You come in my car and I'll take you around Birmingham, and I promise you that everybody, even the most far left person, would be unable to deny those lines. It's not a headline. We're not grandstanding. It's a fact. Immigration in Birmingham, in certain areas, has failed.
And Vernon, just playing devil's advocate, would it not be that if I was in the car with you, that I would see communities that just are made up of a certain people from a certain background, religion, race, that kind of thing? But why does that equate to integration has failed?
Well, the reality of it is, first of all, if you go to a local hospital, there are interpreters, Mark.
Right.
It shouldn't be allowed.
No.
There is one language in this country, and it's English. There is one law in this land, and it's the law of the land, the United Kingdom laws. A bit of self-pride. We seem to be embarrassed in this country, Mark. I don't understand it. It can't be tolerated. My question to you, when are we going to stop bending down to the Muslim community?
Well, indeed, and I think, stay with us, Vernon, I think that we're bending down not just to sort of Muslim extremists who you know, we've got the Muslim community who are shielding these factions, you know, within their own ranks, Paul, and it needs to be called out, and it hasn't been called out by the police because of the community tensions. But we're also, you know, taking the knee to BLM and sort of other crazy woke ideas. It needs to be challenged. Can you give Vernon any hope that it ever will be?
Well, first of all, it's great to hear from people like Vernon, because these are voices, other than on places like talkTV, you're just not going to hear Vernon talk, because what Vernon is telling you is his lived experience in the very city that we're talking about. And we're told from Zach Polanski to the BBC that there is absolutely no problem in Birmingham, and that anyone who points it out in any fashion has got it wrong and at best is bigoted, and they've misunderstood what's going on. It's not true. Vernon sounds like someone who's very sensible here. He didn't want to go out of his way to criticise anyone in particular, but what's true for Vernon and many people like Vernon is they just do not feel as if they are at home in their own city. And what we've done is we've taken the incumbent people, the incumbent culture of Great Britain, and we've just discarded it in order to accommodate anything and anybody else. And that means it's not built on any real baseline. There's no underpinning ethics of culture for Great Britain. And we do have a culture here. We've always had a culture here. And Vernon's right to say things like, I should be able to go into hospital and everybody speaks English. There shouldn't be translators all over the place. We shouldn't have ghettos. We shouldn't have areas which, you know, there is segregation, but it's a segregation against the incumbent culture. And that's got nothing to do with skin colour. It often has a lot to do with religion. It's quite clearly that people don't want to talk about the Muslim religion being overzealous is how I would describe it. Overzealous in some way and expecting everybody to capitulate to them. And you've seen that in the entitlement from the rhetoric this week. They're almost aghast. They're celebrating that the Israeli fans can't come here, making them out to be some humanic devil that should be banned. There's no precedent for this, by the way. There are lots of violent fans associated to lots of British clubs, for instance, or other European clubs. And what we do is they have banning orders for people that have been convicted for crimes. And the rest of the fans are allowed to get on and watch the football. The vast majority of the Israeli fans will be good people who want to support their team in Aston Villa.
Vernon, not putting words in your mouth, but I feel that, you know, you've lost your home city and that you want your country back. How can that be brought to pass?
It's really simple. You have to abide by the rules. Everybody has to speak English. There has to be pride in the country. You know, ultimately, my fear mark at this moment in time, and my heart goes out to the Jewish community, particularly in London and in Manchester, where there are very large communities. This country's failed them. How dare we? I mean, for me, it's scandalous. The Prime Minister of this country has a Jewish wife. How on earth, or whatever she's stealing, it's an abomination. It's England first. It's country first. Stop apologising. Police properly, not the people. If people break the law, you arrest them, you put them in jail, regardless of creed, religion or colour. It's so simple. Stop pussyfooting around because Islamophobia. I mean, let's be fair about it. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's not the minority, it's the majority. We've got to have these difficult conversations that nobody wants to have. Oh, Vernon from Birmingham, he's a racist. I'm sorry, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a wealth creator, I'm very successful, and I'm hugely disappointed that my city has been hijacked. Now, my football club has been hijacked. Enough is enough. It's got to stop.
Vernon, what a powerful call. Please call me again soon. I really appreciate what you've had to say this morning. 0344 499 1000. Your reaction, please. J.D. Vance said it. This is Andy from Liverpool. J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, said it. This will be the first Muslim country in the West to have a real nuclear threat. If we don't sort it out, that's what will happen. Now, here's a question. Are we demonising all British Muslims, the majority of whom are peace-loving and do participate, you know, in British values and British tradition and are our neighbours, friends and colleagues? What do you think? Is there a danger of tarring all British Muslims with the same brush? Vernon speaks so much truth, says Sharon. Why the hell is the NHS paying millions for interpreters? This is the UK. One should be speaking English only, not wasting taxpayers' money on this rubbish. You should not have access to the NHS if you can't speak English. Well, don't forget that the guy convicted of threatening to murder Nigel Farage was read his sentence in court by an interpreter. Make it make sense. Tomorrow's paper's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Gary says, good morning, Mark. The so-called normal Muslims are the grass in which the wolves hide. That's Gary in Birmingham. We've got Pete, who says, few Muslims mix with British or Christian people outside of work, and they don't want to join in British activities, but rather try to force their way of life on us in our own country, especially halal food for a start. This all has to stop. Stephen says, good morning, Mark. Stephen Middlesbrough here. Us normal people can see what's going on. We travel through these cities. We've been on about this for years and no one listened. This has to stop here. And Pauline, our son lives in Sutton Coldfield and says there are definitely areas of Birmingham he wouldn't even drive through. It is not a myth. And that's the issue. This is what the left do, Paul, with the greatest respect, is that they gaslight you. They tell you it's not happening. And when you call it out, or when it becomes abundantly clear that it is happening, then they call you racist.
Absolutely. And then what you get is a wave of right-wing populism, which we are currently in. And it's never going away. And they owe it all to themselves, really. What people are being punished for is not being anything other than noticing. People are being... What we're seeing now is people are being criticised for noticing what is actually going on. And that's an incredible thing to say, because every single one of your callers and contributors have said very similar things, which is they notice it. Their friends and family notice it. It is going on. And the thing is, if the people in power keep telling you it's not going on, but you can see it, eventually you lose all trust and authority.
Well, that's right. What is that Orwell line about, do not believe the evidence of your eyes and ears? It was the first most important instruction of the party.
Exactly.
And that's the world we live in now, where you've got to believe that a man is a woman, that somehow net zero makes sense, even though we've got less than 1% of global emissions. China aren't doing it. During COVID, some of us said, does it really make sense printing money and paying people to stay at home for this virus? We were COVID deniers. It goes on and on and on.
But it's all been proven. It's all been borne out. And we go back to COVID. It feels like a million years ago now. But a lot of people, probably a lot of people listening to this and people inclined to call in, would have started forming their views as a result of what happened during the COVID times, because they could see what was going on. They could see there was very little benefit from the things they were being forced to do.
Yeah.
And now we are like 5 years on. We've got an inquiry that's going to rumble on for the rest of our lifetimes. That's not going to tell us anything that is going to be of any use to us or prevent or help us in the future. And children in particular that were at school during that time, are discovering that it was fatal for them.
Most definitely. Sharon says everyone comes to the UK to abuse our NHS. They certainly would not get the care and attention that's given to them in the NHS in their country. We've also got, let me have a look at this. This is on the football match. Good morning, Mark. Clearly the Israeli ban at Aston Villa is the thin end of the wedge. It's a slippery slope. What's next? It's identity religion. The current government and civil service are leading the UK to oblivion. Powerful stuff. That's from my namesake, Mark. Listen, did you know that Christmas is coming, Paul Cox? But it's bad news for Father Christmas, who I'm afraid has been caught up in the obesity epidemic. A radio presenter has been told he's too fat to play Father Christmas. This is not ho, ho, ho. This is no, no, no. Mike Mendoza, best known for his time on TalkSport. What a great broadcaster he is. Phil Dave, do you remember Mike Mendoza? What a lovely man. What a great voice. He spent the past 30 years donning a red Santa costume and spreading festive cheer. But just a week before he was set to take the stage at Lapland, UK, in Great Windsor Park, Ascot, his employers informed him that he'd lost the role. He said, everything was a bit tight at the wardrobe fitting about 2 weeks ago. That was all I knew until I got a letter 3 or 4 days ago saying the outfits didn't fit and they were letting me go. Have they never heard of a tailor, Paul Cox?
Well, exactly. And I mean, surely there is no upper weight limit for Father Christmas. The whole point is that you can be fat and be jolly and fat and be Father Christmas.
The fatter the better. I mean, he's got to be a porker, because I have played Father Christmas in the past. and it's very disappointing for the children.
Yeah, you've got to stick a pillow or two up your jumper.
Really, I look emaciated. I was a kind of anorexic Father Christmas.
I mean, no one wants to see a skinny Father Christmas. You wonder what's going on.
He needs the rosy cheeks,
yeah,
and he needs the belly and the double chin and the long beard.
He's on approximately 17.4 million mince pies in one night. You're not working that off, are you?
No, he isn't. I mean, I cannot believe. I mean, it's 2025 and already Father Christmas has been cancelled. And by the way, can I also point out another of his great offending crimes, right? Father Christmas. Not only is he fat and obese and unhealthy, probably with type 2 diabetes, he's overly white. He's far too white.
This is a big problem, Mike. And Mark, who the hell's Mike? Thanks for pointing it out, though, because if you hadn't have pointed it out, how would we known he's white? And the colour of his skin is incredibly important, Mark.
Of course it is.
I mean, spreading all that joy and being white, we can't.
It's time for a diverse Father Christmas, isn't it?
Well, I'm sure it's coming. It'll be in law, I expect. 4 more years of Labour, and it'll have to be, I don't know, Father Mohammed.
Yeah, well, with all of that sort of Rudolph stuff, he's a classic example of white privilege, isn't it? The outrageous in-betweeners jokes you could never make now as hit sitcom tipped to return with unlikely revival after years of cast feuding and lead stars ruling out a comeback. Now, The In-Betweeners, for those that don't know, is a sitcom set in, well, what is it, sort of teenage years?
Yeah, it was. It is that, and it's not just teenage years, it's that in between teenage and adult years.
Yeah.
Those formative years where you're discovering your body, you're discovering the opposite sex if that's what you're interested in, you're discovering sex in general, drinking, drugs, whatever it might be, the fun of the future. And it was an incredibly funny sitcom, and which is unusual these days. And the thing about a reunion, it tells you two things. One thing is that it was so good people want to see it again. It also tells you that the comedy landscape is so poor that it needs to be filled with things of the past because nothing good is coming in.
They brought back Mitchell and Webb as well.
Of course, and it's doing great.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only seen clips of the Mitchell and Webb sketch show, but everything I've seen is kind of refreshing. I've not seen anything overly woke. It all seems to be quite funny. It's the sort of thing only they could get commissioned. And the only reason they can get it commissioned is because they still fit comfortably within the woke bubble. And they've got a history of being funny. If you and I started to write something amazingly world-breakingly funny, Mark, we'd have no chance of getting it commissioned.
No, that's right. A young Ricky Gervais would not have a career now.
No, exactly. And by the way, the In-Betweeners wouldn't. I mean, I know it's an old adage to say so, but the In-Betweeners wouldn't get a show now either. Absolutely not. It's going to be very interesting to see how they play this, because it's got to remain incredibly edgy. Even though these guys now are going to be, I assume, adults with careers and families and children, relationships, there's still going to be, the comedy's always going to come from what they were like as these teenagers, young adults. And as we know, the funniest things about real life are the things that really happen in life, the things that are most relatable. If you woke up the In-Betweeners in some way, you haven't got the In-Betweeners show.
Not only are you a leading comedian, but you book some top clubs as well.
I do.
Is it exaggerated? But when people say, you know, oh, you can't say anything these days, is that exaggerated?
It is a little bit, I'll be honest, because funny's still funny. So it is a privileged position to book my own comedy clubs, and I don't book based on my political views because not everybody shares my views. I book for the audience, and one thing I noticed is that you need to have a smorgasbord of different backgrounds. But the one ingredient that matters above all else is funny. Yeah. It has to be funny. You can't have people on a lineup just because they look and sound, feel and all these other things a certain way. They have to be funny. Now, you do want to hear stories from different backgrounds because it's interesting. We all enjoy learning about other people, whether it's people from our culture, people from another culture. All of those things are interesting, but funny is the important thing. And funny has never changed. What was funny, maybe, I mean, sensitivities have changed, and that's important to point out, but largely funny has never changed. The things that we find relatable have never changed. It's what's going on in real life. It's saying that taboo. It's saying that thing that people notice that people are too afraid to talk about, and saying it in a funny way that brings whole groups of people together. The only time I ever see any awkwardness in an audience is around politics, because what happens then is you're not only dividing the room in terms of their particular politics, but even those who would find it funny don't want to be seen to laugh, because as you and I know, bumping into the general public, they'll often mosey on up to us and secretly say, well done, or keep doing what you're doing, because they don't want their friends and peers and family to know that they agree with us in some way. So you do get that, but as long as you stick to humanity and life, and it's funny, you've got the recipe for success.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, and I was performing last night in central London, and if you say something that's politically incorrect, it's not just that the audience will accept it, they crave it.
Yes.
Now, partly because, and it was yesterday, it was Friday evening, so I've got lots of office workers who have come straight from work, they've had a couple of pints and then come into a comedy club. And what they want to do is decompress, and they want the opposite of what they've had at work, which is the kind of HR-dominated culture of political correctness and not having bawdy humour or saying what's in your head. And when a comedian's on stage doing it on their behalf, they love it.
Of course they do.
And that's not deliberately offensive, but it's just being naughty and saying things that are a bit naughty and close to the knuckle and might be, you could do wife jokes or whatever it is.
There's only one judge, and it's the audience. And they'll tell you if you've gone too far. They always will do. But people do. The naughtiness is such a good word. If you are just deliberately offensive in order to cause offence, it doesn't matter what the political persuasion of that audience is, they won't enjoy it. It's awkward for them. But if it's playing on the lines, if it's playing in the blurred areas, if it's pointing out the things you're not supposed to point out, it's funny. And also, you can make yourself the butt of the joke. Quite often, you can get a view across by making the joke against you. It makes other people feel comfortable to laugh, and it gives you license to talk about the things you want to talk about.
People are saying that, this woke stuff, the political correctness, is in retreat. But take a look at this story about James Bond, right? The James Bond movies have been slapped with yet another fresh wave of woke trigger warnings by streaming giant Prime Video. Almost every iconic 007 film on the platform has had content alerts added at the start. And one of them, right, is about Dr. No, and it carries a warning of violence, alcohol use and smoking.
I mean, that's the minimum I expect from James Bond, by the way. And there's a couple of things that always strikes me here. Who is getting offended? It must be such a small percentage of people getting offended. And so what?
Yeah.
Who cares if you're offended? It's not for you then. Don't watch it. I don't think anyone's accidentally watching this stuff. Because,
No.
if you're an adult and you're offended by James Bond, then I really don't know how you're getting on with the rest of life. Because real life is much more offensive than James Bond, so just suck it up.
Most definitely. Why I Absolutely Won't Overdo Christmas Tipple by Joanna Lumley. It's easy to imagine Joanna Lumley as her most famous character, Bollinger-swilling, chain-smoking Patsy from Absolutely Fabulous. But even though she does enjoy smoking, Dame Joanna, who's now 79, has revealed she doesn't really drink, only having one glass at Christmas because she can't bear drunk people. I don't know if you are someone that partakes of a beer or two.
I don't drink anymore, actually. I haven't had a drink for about a year, and not for any particular reason. With my job, I travel a lot by car. I do about 40,000 miles a year, which a lot of people, I'm not a truck driver, I'm a comedian, and I couldn't drink anyway. I'm in drinking establishments most of my evenings, but I can't drink, and I've stopped. I kind of it doesn't bother me. Drunk people pay my wages.
Well, I'm glad
I don't have a problem
but
with them.
could you get through Christmas? Well, did you do last Christmas?
I did last
dry?
Christmas completely dry.
Oh,
and that's what told me.
And how did that go?
Fine. Absolutely fine. I'm not one of these born again non-drinkers in any way, and I will drink again at some point, I'm sure. But I wouldn't judge anyone for drinking. It's a great escape. I've had some of the best times in my life having a drink. And there's flip sides to this. We talked about Paul Gascoigne earlier, and it does overtake and ruin lives. But people should be free to do what they like. I want small government and freedom for people. And if they choose to have a drink, they choose to have a drink. I have no issue with that.
Amen to that. This from Dan in Kent. Good morning, Mark. Our biggest obstacle in this country is people like Gary Neville and the woke brigade. They're the ones that are lazily throwing around the racist card. They're the ones who are protecting the anti-Semitism in the country. They're the ones who will kick off when Farage becomes PM. Or yes, there will be a river, a flood, a tsunami of lefty tears. Bring it on. I'm here for it. More front pages next.
I'm not defending football hooliganism and disruption, tips into violence. That's a really bad thing, and that's happened, sadly, for decades, for hundreds of years around competitive sport in our country. But this is a much darker situation. What's really happened here is that West Midlands Police have listened to parts of the community in places like Aston and Handsworth and have come to the view that they cannot protect Jewish people on the streets of those neighbourhoods.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is the Aston Villa football row a demonstration of the failure of Britain's multicultural experiment? This is a voice note from Sean.
Morning, Mark. Sean from Grimsby. What these Muslims need to ask themselves in our country is what comes first, England or Islam? And I can guarantee the vast majority of them will say Islam, because Islam comes first, and that's the difference between us. It's family, community, country. That's the way we work, but that's not Islam. Islam comes first. Great show, mate.
Thank you, Sean. Great voice message. I think, Paul, that Sean has put his finger on the button there. That
Yes.
this is the integration test, which is, are you British first or Islamic first?
Yes, Sean makes a really good point there, because and people will feel very uncomfortable with Sean's point there, because they'll feel uncomfortable that he's made a comparison between, he said England for a start. That's a microaggression straight away, isn't it, for some people? England, oh my goodness, how bad is
word,
that?
yeah.
But he's absolutely right, and in order for us all to live in some harmonious beautiful haven that they want us to exist within, we would have to have some principles on which we could base that. I mean, I don't think any of that's achievable, by the way. I think there's always going to be me, you and Sean, and there's going to be, let's call them the Muslim community, and there's going to be a Venn diagram of people in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And you're always going to have that. The problem is they've scrunched everybody together and said, you can all get on. This is a good thing. And inevitably, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. That's the biggest lie. It's never going to work. Diversity is not our strength. Diversity, by its very meaning, is a weakness. You are diversifying that strength. What would bring people together is if you had a purely secular community that everybody was entitled to have their own views and beliefs, but you based everything you were doing on a set of principles. And Sean's right. If you were to ask 99% of Muslims what comes first to you, is it England or Islam, they are going to say Islam. Now, that's perfectly fine. But what it does immediately is undermine this whole multiculturalism phenomenon.
It is, and it basically makes a myth of the melting pot, because if it's Islam first and Britain second, then nothing has melted, has it? In fact, it has solidified. Cliff has called Talk Breakfast. Top of the morning, Cliff.
Good morning, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm very well, delighted to take your call. What do you make about this ban on Israeli football fans coming to Villa Park next month?
Okay, so I woke up to this news yesterday, and as an ex-policeman who was involved in public order policing for a long time, absolutely disgusted is the only word I can use for it. Effectively, West Mids have told the country they're not fit for purpose. They can't manage a relatively small event in terms of it's a football match. It's not rocket science. There's basic tactics, and they're used for many, many years very effectively. I just don't understand it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd be these Tel Aviv fans. It would be around 1,000. I mean, we've had these so-called peace marches every weekend since October the 7th, with many tens of thousands, and they've been supposedly able to police that.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. There is a difference between those policing operations. If you're policing football, your fans will expect police presence. They know the tactics pretty much as well as we do. They'll be collected into a box and they'll be moved around either for their safety or to prevent integration and disorder with the opposing fans. With the, I think with the peace marches, it's not as easy to do that. The containment element would be much more difficult. But we're talking about West Midlands Police, the third biggest police force in England. Approximately, I think they run at about 8,000 officers now. So if 2/3 of those are uniform and another third are your specialist trained, that's still enough to put this on. So it is a purely political decision, which is just goes completely against what you're supposed to do as a police officer, without fear, favour or affection.
Yeah, Cliff, what does it say about the culture of modern British policing that cops decided, that a ban would be the preferred option?
Well, it says a great deal about that, and it also says a great deal about the steerage from the government and interference in that you're telling or you're inferring from this group of councillors who have made this so-called petition, put that to the police, and then the senior officers have said, yeah, that seems like a great idea. We will not apply the freedom of movement, the freedom of speech, which is basically what you've got as a football fan. You want to shout for your team, you want to move around to support them, basic human right. I'm not sure of the articles now, but that is in the Human Rights Act. And now they've gone and said, no, we're not a police service now acting fairly and impartially. We're politicised and we're going to go down that road.
Is there an element of cowardice on the part of police chiefs here, Cliff? Or is it just mainly political, do you think?
No, it's absolute cowardice. Absolute. And when I hear things like this, Mark, I was in the police for 28 years. It makes me ashamed that I have no idea what these people are being taught on their senior cadres now. Because years ago, the police did their job and people were able to do the things they want within the law. Once you cross that line, you heard from the police. You didn't get them knocking on your door because you said you didn't like what someone said or didn't like a certain thing that the government were doing.
Briefly, Cliff, can I just ask you before you go, regarding these peace marches, my concern, and it's the topic of today's 8 a.m. Dolan's dispatch, is that if we want to face down this ideology, this Islamic extremism, my concern, and I think we saw it at the peace marches, is that the cops are outnumbered. Is the genie out of the bottle and not going back in?
No, again, Mark, I don't think they are outnumbered. I think what is happening is commanders will decide on the deployment of numbers, and a lot of that is really because they don't want to look overzealous or over-imposing, and that will be because it is that type. I'm telling you now, I won't name the clubs because I don't think the clubs are responsible for hooligans, never have, but if we were dealing with certain risk groups, we would be there in numbers and we would adopt a very, I wouldn't say aggressive, but a very positive attitude. And they switch on to that. The fans switch on to it. They know they're not going to be able to get away with any nonsense. What's happening here is you're letting people, some guy last week with that chant that he made up, this student, and then someone else with an Islamic State flag. Yeah. It is really the attitude of commanders, and again, that's got to be influenced by political direction. There's no other explanation for it. It is cowardice.
Cliff, a damning and important call. Thank you so much for picking up the phone this morning. 03444991000. Cliff there, talking about the culture of policing, Paul Cox, with two key words, which is politicisation and cowardice.
It's really interesting, isn't it? And it's great to hear from voices like Cliff, because time and time again we hear from ex-police officers and sometimes even serving police officers where they will say they're in an incredibly difficult situation. Incredibly difficult situation. They have some rules to follow. and those rules are against their own beliefs in many ways. They don't want to be policing tweets. They don't want to be following the line of a government they entirely disagree with, but they're forced to do so. And now it's endemic within the policing college that this is not going to turn out. It's going to be like a huge freighter now. It's going to take a long time to turn around. Yeah. You're not going to change it overnight. But I think we could do with having people like Cliff back into the police force to teach people how things could be done differently, how things were once done, and not to be ashamed of, you know, peace through strength in our policing.
Well, most definitely. I think there's a problem of culture in our policing, in our public institutions, in our society. And it's going to be the perennial question in today's show, right? The genie is out of the bottle. Is it going back in? 03444991000. Next up, we've got more on this Aston Villa-Israel football row. We're going to be joined in the studio by a retired top cop who's going to be dropping a few truth bombs. And how do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew? All of that is next.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK. Those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain.
There was a Union Jack flag put up and I took it down instantly. And some people might be watching this and thinking, well, Gary, not very patriotic.
No, look, he's a thick footballer, isn't he? Let's be clear.
I don't think he's thick.
Well, no,
he's not
I think
thick.
I think he's thick on the basis that he sees it through that lens that somehow... But don't forget, he's talking about the context of the murders in that Manchester synagogue.
Yeah. The other enablers are the people who say don't talk about grooming gangs because we want to have a more community cohesion.
I suggest that, you know, there are certain Garys in the commentariat that might have headed the ball a bit too much in their careers.
Well, I had the misfortune to sit through the entire Keir Starmer.
So did I.
When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does.
I don't know about you, I'm still kind of absorbing the kind of full content of that extraordinary speech, and I was still digesting it when up pops Nigel Farage with an absolutely extraordinary comeback.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are, by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
United Kingdom. Where's the United Kingdom?
Behind you.
Where?
Oh, I'm here. Oh, there you are.
Very good.
Oh, Keir's coming forward.
It all came in like 20-minute notice.
Oh, he's come up to speak and Trump sent him away.
Others, and just so many others. And it's such a compliment to what we're doing, because what we've done is something very unique and very special. So it's perhaps the wealthiest and most powerful.
Right, cut him now. Cut that. Just stop Trump now. I had to wait for that, people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning to you. It is 3 minutes past 7 and your weekend starts here. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A big 3 hours to come. The Aston Villa-Israel football row rages on with the news that our Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood knew all along that the ban was happening. So just how much did the Prime Minister know in what looks to be a fresh new scandal engulfing the government? Talking of scandal, Prince Andrew is now as close to being an ordinary person as he'll ever be, having lost all of his titles. He is no longer the grand old Duke of York. But should he cease to be a prince as well? And should he be turfed out of the 30-bedroom Royal Lodge? We'll get the human cost of Rachel Reeves's wicked farmer's inheritance tax. We'll speak to a leading farmer explaining why it's having such an impact on our farming community. Could a U-turn be in the offing from the Chancellor in her November budget? And in a Talk Breakfast exclusive, we'll be speaking to the teacher who lost his job for the great crime of putting up a flag of this country. That is a Talk Breakfast exclusive coming up shortly. And this is not a drill. The monologue is back in today's Dolan's dispatch at 8 a.m. 3 words have destroyed Britain: avoiding community tensions. Dangerous extremism has been legitimised by the media, by state institutions, and the genie is out of the bottle. My concern is whether it will ever go back in. That's a special Dolan's dispatch at 8 a.m. sharp. Do not miss it. And my priority for the next 3 hours is to get your opinions on the national radio and television airwaves. You can give me a call now. Kieran is answering your calls, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. A big 3 hours to come. Don't forget Dolan's dispatch in an hour's time. So much to get through. As the saying goes, let's talk. And we'll kick off with today's front pages. The Daily Mail. Andrew falls on his sword under intense pressure from the King. Andrew finally agrees to relinquish the dukedom and membership of the Order of the Garter. The Guardian. We can't leave welfare untouched, says Rachel Reeves as she prepares her November budget. The Daily Telegraph. Andrew forced to give up his royal titles. FT Weekend. Chancellor weighs a Brit ISA revival. Weekend. Palace forces Andrew to give up his titles and sends him into exile. The Times. Andrew gives up titles. And from Kate Manzi, who is one of their brilliant royal reporters, the lie that was finally too much for Charles. When proof emerged that Prince Andrew had lied about his contact with Jeffrey Epstein, the clock was ticking for the royal formerly known as the Duke of York. Daily Mirror exclusive. Gaza, I just can't give up boozing, and royal bombshell. Andrew quits Duke titles. And Daily Express. Andrew, I will no longer use Duke of York title. For reaction to all of the big stories of the day, I'm delighted to welcome retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mike.
How do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew?
Well, it's very difficult, but you know, I'm a historian, and there is the Duke of York, the Grand Old Duke of York statue, is off Pall Mall, and there's a 2-hour gap in his time as Commander-in-Chief, and he was brought down by a scandal involving a young woman. I mean, who could believe that happened again? Like, you know, so history often repeats itself, so there you go.
There's something about that title. It's jinxed, isn't
jinxed,
it?
Yeah.
Now, do you think that he should cease to be Prince? Because that would require an Act of Parliament.
It would, and he will always claim to be a prince because he's the son of a queen, isn't he? So it's hard to sort of take it off him. And what will be achieved? I mean, he's been punished, hasn't he? I've heard from police colleagues who used to guard him. He was an arrogant and awful chap.
Yeah.
So he's got what's coming to him, really. He's associated with the most dreadful people, and he's brought nothing but shame on this country. I always think, if you're born into privilege, it's what you do to then help others. And all he's done is help himself, and that he's been brought down on that.
Well, that's right. In stark contrast to his nephew, Prince William, who seems very focused as the Prince of Wales and at some point the King in tackling the real problems facing this country: homelessness, the environment, the importance of nature. Those are the predominant themes that you associate with William. And we've had no such constructive input from Prince Andrew, have we?
No, and I also think the British Legion motto is the best: service before self. You know, and I've tried to live by that. If you're in the army or whatever rank, if you're a police officer, a nurse, firefighter, any of these jobs, that's what you should be. And if you're born into privilege like the royal family, you can see in the dedication of somebody like Princess Anne, they use their influence and time to make the world a better place. They don't use it to fill their own pockets.
Well, she had that shocking accident with the horse, which, by the way, was far more serious than was reported, because she's such a humble person and she didn't want to make a fuss, but she was seriously injured in that incident with the horse, and she was back doing her royal duties a couple of weeks later. And still with pain relief and just getting on with it.
And look at the King. How old's the King now? In his
76.
76, and he's suffering from cancer. He's having treatment, and yet he's still
an impossible diary that you and I would struggle to keep up with.
Doing his duties and bringing good to the world, because I was speaking to some Americans yesterday and some Romanians about why do we have a king, and they thought, yeah, it's a good thing. You know, it's a nice. It binds the country together, doesn't it? 1,000 or more years of history.
Most definitely. You and I have got good memories. Andrew's always been a sort of generator of bad headlines. He's always been a bit of a wrong one. He was nicknamed Randy Andy in the 1980s.
Well, I think we could accept it if you're young and randy. We've all been there at some point in our lives, I suppose.
Speak for yourself, Michael.
And of course, he was
in a very sheltered upbringing.
And he was in the Falklands War, you know, flying helicopters, you know, bringing exocet missiles away from ships. And he had all that future. You wonder why. It's like Prince Harry. Why did he leave the armed forces? Because it gave him you know, it's all right if you're going to be king, but when you're one of these spares, you've got to find something to fill your life. And Harry left the army. If he'd stayed in the army, there's a purpose. And because once you don't have a purpose in life and it's just a doss and you've got loads of money, things start to go badly wrong. And I think with Andrew, he started losing money, so he started associating with these awful billionaires and the like. And he's just brought shame upon his family. And he's brought shame upon the country.
Most definitely. And whilst clearly the focus is on his association with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who took his own life in prison under, I would argue, quite mysterious circumstances. Notwithstanding that, there is another story, which is Britain's national security and his alleged association with a Chinese spy.
It's just beyond belief, isn't it? I mean, if you read it, you could read these things in a novel, couldn't you? You'd think it'd be some kind of TV show or a film that you know, member of the royal family is associated with a country which is our biggest threat. But again, we had Edward VIII visiting Hitler. You know, so nothing. You know, these things don't change. I suppose it goes on and on and on. But it's just that, well, he's had his punishment now. The best thing you could do, if you look at Profumo after the Profumo affairs, Profumo affair in the 60s, he went away, John Profumo, and he sacrificed his life to charity to try and win back some respect. I think my advice, if I was Andrew's advisor, I'd say to him, you need to throw yourself into something decent to show for the next 10 or 15 years that you have contributed to this country and try and win back some kind of respect for yourself.
Yes, and do it as a civilian.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, what if he was to make a gesture and say, I will no longer call myself Prince Andrew? Would that be constructive?
I think the best thing he could do would be to throw himself into something good and show that I can do something, whether it's an armed forces...
Would he be welcome, though? I mean, if he turned up at a community centre, you know, offering to make cups of tea, you know, would he be turned away?
Well, I don't, if it's a Christian...
Is he not damned if he doesn't, damned if he doesn't?
Well, I'm a Christian. What would Jesus have said? If a sinner turns up and offers himself to do something good... John Profumo used to sweep out the community centre in Whitechapel, started at the bottom. So if he's prepared to sacrifice him like that, we are a Christian nation, we should be forgiving if somebody wants a chance, but he needs to do it, and he needs to do it so the good of everybody's taken.
I think you're right. I'm just thinking of the disgraced former cabinet minister Jonathan Aitken, who went to prison as a result of perjury, and he became a prison pastor and is now a man of the cloth and has turned his life around.
Well, there we go.
So there's always hope, isn't there? But is there
Let him who has not sinned, Mark. That's
you're right there.
Very wise words from a great man 2,000 years ago.
Well, that's it. Because, you know, it's not just Randy Andy, it's Randy Mike.
Many years ago.
And it's Randy Dolan as well, but only when the mood takes me. Let's take a look now at this football row, this Israel-Aston Villa football row. And this is the independent MP, Ayub Khan, speaking about the ban directed towards these Israeli fans. Take a listen.
Many residents have raised concerns about the football match, which is due to take place on the 6th of November. Maccabi Tel Aviv. We've all seen those harrowing images from Amsterdam. I've started a petition to boycott Maccabi Tel Aviv. There is no space for violence or any thugs to come into Aston or indeed Birmingham. That is why I urge everyone to sign up to this petition. Boycott Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Well, excellent news for the people of Birmingham and, most importantly, the residents here in Aston. I launched a petition to oppose the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming to Birmingham and then into the Aston Villa Stadium. The surrounding ward of Aston is a ward that sits within my constituency, and I had many residents and businesses express concern of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming into our area. Clearly, we have all witnessed the scenes in Amsterdam, the violence that was displayed by the fans the night before the match. We all watched and listened to those vile chants of hatred and racism, and so there's no space for that kind of behaviour here in Birmingham. There's certainly no space for that kind of conduct in Aston. So I'm very pleased that both the West Midlands Police and Aston Villa Football Club have now written to UEFA informing them of their decision not to allow any fans from entering Birmingham and Aston.
Well, Mike Neville, you are a retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Your reaction to the news that cops have decided that actually the Israeli fans should not come to the game?
Right, so truly shocking, awful. And I feel sorry for British Jews and any Israelis who come to this country as well. And one thing that always sums up to me how the British police should be is when in 1938-39, when Jewish children were being brought to this country from Germany, one of the little girls, an old lady now, recorded in her diary the first thing she knew about Britain, first thing she remembers about Britain is when she got off the boat, the policeman smiled, because she'd come from a country where the police were wicked and authoritarian, and now she was in a country where the police are friendly and nice. So that policeman welcomed these little Jewish children. The police also, their job is to keep the peace, to make sure that everybody's safe. Now, we have the Notting Hill Carnival every year. Every year at Notting Hill Carnival, there are stabbings, there are the murder every 2 or 3 years. Yet the police are able to do that. We have these Palestinian marches. The Metropolitan Police have admitted we haven't got enough officers to manage crime and manage those demonstrations. So if you go around London, you'll see officers from Northern Ireland and Wales who were brought in all over the UK to help that out. Now, this Craig Guilford, who's the Chief Constable of West Midlands, he should really seriously consider his position, or he should be sacked. Because if he's saying, I've not got enough officers in West Midlands, which is the third largest force in the UK, then he could have appealed for mutual aid and he could have brought officers in. But we have a series of people gesturing. You have the Home Secretary, you have the Prime Minister claiming that, oh, this is an outrage. Yet they knew about it several days ago. They could have intervened in this, provided money, provided resources, and yet it only becomes an outrage to them when the press find out about it.
Most definitely. Well, let's look next at the political implications of this. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, knew about the Israeli football ban. Why did she sanction it? And how much did the Prime Minister know? We'll get that next.
wonder if that yacht paid any ULEZ like everyone else, all the nurses, teachers and doctors that try and get to work and get slammed with a £12.50 additional fee because apparently they're guzzling too much diesel and petrol and it's polluting the air. The next time you kind of get your phone nicked, you might get side-stabbed in London, you might choke on the horrendous air on the tube. Champagne's socialist mayor, Sadiq Khan, will be resting easy in his 268-metre super yacht, sanctioned by this billionaire.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is the Tel Aviv-Aston Villa football ban a demonstration of the failure of Britain's multicultural experiment, given that the argument for stopping these fans coming to the United Kingdom is that they wouldn't be safe? Daniel is in Epsom. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Mark. You're right.
Very well indeed. Daniel, how did we get here?
I'll tell you exactly how we got here. So for about 25 to 30 years, the British majority have been desperately trying to vote against mass immigration from the third world. We've been asking our governments to be very selective around legal immigration, low numbers, high skilled, and basically the Con-Lab Uniparty have ignored our wishes and feelings, despite the fact that they work for us. So what's happening now across the country is the majority of British people, like me, can see the decline and degradation around us. We can see that mass immigration from the third world is destroying the fabric of Britain. We can see third world immigration ruining our country and our children's futures, and we won't stand for it anymore. And what we're going to do, Mark, is the Welsh Senate is going to be taken over by Reform. Every single local election that happens between now and the general election, the majority of which Reform are going to win. And the British majority are waking up and we're realising that we have to vote Reform. This is our last chance to save our children's future and Britain. And everyone I know, my family, myself, we are all going to vote Reform. We need mass deportations. We need to bring back law and order. We need to bring back common decency that I grew up with. I'm 48. I'm from London. Look around Europe as well, and we see the most homogenous countries have the least amount of crime and the most amount of social cohesion. And I'm jealous of Poland, Hungary, Slovenia, Slovakia, because they didn't have mass immigration from the third world, and their societies do work well, and they are not in danger every time they leave the house.
Most definitely, Daniel. I can't disagree with you, but is the damage done? Is the genie out of the bottle, and can it go back in?
It can go back in with brave, tough leadership. I think we need to have... We need mass deportations, definitely. And I think we need to have we need to kind of make an agreement that everyone in the boat in Britain is going to be rowing in the same direction. We must share these beliefs and we must share these values. If you don't, you're going to have to leave. Because for too long now, I mean, we've been ignored. How can you ignore the British public around this one particular issue of immigration? People say, well, it's only immigration. No, it isn't. The schools are oversubscribed. You can't drive on the roads. The roads are packed. We've probably got 73 million people trying to use an infrastructure fit for 50 million people. We haven't got any social cohesion. Crime is out of control, right? And the biggest contributing factor to all of these issues, right, is mass immigration, particularly from the third world. I think it's a scourge. I think it's a cancer, and it's making this country worse and worse by the day. And the reality is the majority of Britons know it. We know it. We can see it, and we're going to vote to stop it.
Daniel, stay with us. A very interesting set of points, Mike, from Daniel. What say you?
Well, we've been told, but the establishment have been lying to us for a long time. It's no good. Even people like Prince William coming up saying diversity is their strength. Diversity is not a strength, really. It's diversity of thought, maybe. Unity is their strength. And just as the caller says, are we all rowing in the same direction? I'm afraid we're not. And I think what's happened as well, though, over the last few years is that most people have this has only happened in the city areas, so people could ignore it and they could go back to Epping in Essex or Epsom or nice bits of Wales or whatever, and the only ethnic minorities they see are on EastEnders who are all nice and never do anything wrong. And what people are seeing now is it impacting on every little town in Britain. And I think as far as the crime goes, the biggest statistic I can quote, I got this from The Spectator, is in 1951. 1951, there was 214 robberies reported in the whole of that year in London. The population since 51 has only gone up from 8 to 9 million. There are now 214 robberies every 2 days. Yeah. What has changed in London? We cannot get away with this. We can't get away from the facts. And the people can shout, the establishment can keep calling people racist, but the truth now is coming out. People are actually seeing it. And as I say, people in those little towns who could look at cities and think, oh, it's just there, it's just London, just Birmingham, they can actually see it now. And I think the biggest thing for me is this anti-Semitism. That is just so wicked. My grandfather was that the liberation of Belsen. What in God's name were my family fighting for when we've seen that sort of thing? And now we see British Jews afraid to go on the streets. We see an Israeli team banned from going to Birmingham. This sectarianism has been brought on this country by the establishment who had a dream. This multicultural thing is a cult, it's a dream. And they keep on going. And like the caller says, we've told them in elections time and time and time, we don't want this, but yet they persist in it and they try and smear anybody who stops it.
Multiculturalism was a lie. Daniel thinks reform will fix it, but it's a big ask, isn't it?
It is a big ask, because the problem you have is, like President Trump talks about the swamp, the civil service who've been brought in from the Blairite years, just riddled the whole system. All the civil service, the senior police officers, they're all committed to the same thing. And so reform will be like they'll be empowered. The best thing you could do is just sack them all. Just say, we don't want any of these, so we'd rather do without. Because what they'll do is they'll do everything in their power to hinder. You'd be better as a minister sitting doing all your work yourself, because the civil service will just try and put every single blocker in place. And we need to the other thing we need to bring in is elected judges. So because these judges can't block. And things like these immigration appeals, let's have it where we have a jury, where the judge doesn't decide if the person stays. Let's have members of the public who decide who stays in this country, and we might have some better decisions than the lunacy we have now.
Briefly, Daniel, is too much being asked of Nigel Farage in 4 years' time?
Well, I think it's it'll have to be very bold. I don't think he can come in and tinker around at the edges. I think you have to have bold government. But I think the people are asking for bold, strong government. I think the British majority have had far too much immigration of all kinds for far too long. We can all see the country going to hell in a handcart, primarily due to mass immigration from the third world. We don't want it anymore. We've had enough. And I worry about people like me. I grew up in London, right in the 80s. I can remember a time, I'm 48, I can remember a time where there was common decency and the law and order was better. I mean, Mark, if you think in 1951, if you look at the census results, 98.9% of the population were white, spoke English as a first language and were broadly Christian, okay? And in less than one man's lifetime, we've had that destroyed and ruined against our wishes. It's high time for change.
And the thing is, Daniel, we live in a multi-ethnic society, and in principle that's not a problem. I'm a son of Irish immigrants myself, but the issue is it's the manner of immigration, the fact that there's been no social contract, that when you come to this country you commit to learn the language, to work, to contribute, to participate in the values and traditions of this country, and I would argue to not claim benefits from the state.
Yeah, but Mark, well, you have to remember, I grew up in SE21 on the council estate, right? No father. All the young black lads that I grew up with, all round Norwood, bottom of Croxted Road, Brockwell Park, they've got eyes as well. All the black families that I grew up with on that estate, I still keep in touch with them, they're seeing the same decline and degradation. We talk sometimes as if black and Asian people that have been here for 2 or 3 generations haven't got eyes. They can see the social decline that we can see. They're saying the same things that we say. We have to drop the race card and we have to be honest about what's been going on, Mark.
Most definitely. And it's interesting, Daniel, because I mentioned this on last weekend's show, that I think Reform will win the next election, and they will win it on a multi-ethnic vote. There will be British people of colour voting for Reform because they think what's happened is crazy too.
Yeah, they can see what we can see. And for a long time, we had our views stifled. The establishment have tried to... listen, what's happened is that the ConLab Uniparty can no longer pee on our shoes and tell us it's raining. We know we know what's going on, right? And we won't be silenced anymore. And that's why the revolution will be televised. We are all about to witness the largest earthquake in UK political history ever. So stay tuned.
Daniel, I don't disagree with you. Thank you for your call. Call me again soon. Michael, is there a danger of demonising peace-loving, moderate British Muslims who contribute massively to this country?
I don't think there's a problem of demonising things. I think what's happened is quite the reverse. Anybody who's ever challenged anything has been told they're racist, and that has got to stop. We know that every race and creed has good and bad people. The problem with the Islamic community too often is it's completely segregated. You know, my hometown is Bolton. You can actually see it a lot. It's almost like East and West Berlin. There is a Bolton side which is mainly white people, some Jews, Hindus, Sikhs and whatever else, and then there's a separate bit which is entirely Muslim, and nothing else happens there. And you can often see it in the policing terms, because you can see where there's 999 calls, and there's whole swathes of the country where no one ever rings 999, so everything is dealt with in-house. We've got to break that down. We cannot have these separate communities. This is what has happened in Birmingham. You've got segregated communities, and then you've got all the anti-Semitism that comes with that too. You've got really ruthless community leaders who are self-appointed, who almost dictate where the votes goes. We know about voter scandal and all that. This can't be allowed to happen. Robert Jenrick's calling it out at last. Isabel Oakeshott saying in the Telegraph today about, you know, this is a vision of the future in Birmingham. We can't have that carrying on. It's got to be broken down. I know that in places like Denmark, they're saying you've got to, you know, we cannot have these ghettos. And these ghettos have been allowed to breathe. We see it here in London, don't we? Tower Hamlets, other parts of London, parts of Birmingham in particular. There's got to be bold action to stop this happening. If we're going to have... There has been a lie about integration. The people who claim that we're integrated, and it's... The only thing that Starmer's said that I agree with in the time he's been Prime Minister is that we live in an island of strangers. And he retracted that. Yeah. And we do live in an island of strangers.
Because it was a line written by someone else who probably should be Prime Minister.
And somebody who was telling the truth, but they're telling us lies. But the truth is out now, so they can't keep smearing us. 5 years ago, me and you would have been, the police would have been at the door, would have been locked up for talking like this because they weren't allowing us to talk like that. Remember the general election with Blair, where they made all the leaders sign a thing saying you weren't allowed to talk about immigration. That's how wicked Tony Blair was and his gang. And they've deliberately imposed this upon this country, and it needs to be changed.
Now, clearly, mass immigration has to stop. It has to go down to that famous quote, tens of thousands. It's really just only emergency immigration now for key sectors, which obviously is Reform's policy. The metaphor I'd use, we need to close the door, right?
Absolutely.
For a decade minimum.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Assuming that happens, how do you fix the problem that's already here?
Well,
I don't agree with Daniel that there will be mass deportations.
They'll never be able to do that. They'll never be able to do the mass deportations, whether people want it or not. But what we can do straight away is we can look at the schools. You have schools. I've watched it. I was in Halifax. I was in the swimming pool at Halifax. The kids are coming in. There's like classes of kids, whole lot of white kids, white kids, couple of black kids, and then a whole lot of kids come in from a school where every single child in that school is from a Muslim background. And you can just see it. We cannot have this. We need to integrate the schools. We need to have people mixing together. We can do that sort of things. We can be ruthless on crime. We need to stop people who commit crimes, terrorism. We need to crack down on it. We need to stop pretending that the far right is equal to Islamic terrorism. We need to be honest about things. Being honest about things is the first thing, and secondly, having the will to do something about it is the major thing. And then we can put money into it. But I don't think the establishment they have the will at all. Quite the opposite.
Mike, a delight to have you on the show. Please come back and see us soon. Mike Neville is was a retired Scotland Yard detective, chief inspector. Retired? More's the pity. If only he was still on his beat, because certainly Britain streets would be safer and there would be some common sense policing. And that's a big aspect of this Aston Villa-Israel football row. It's about the culture of political policing in 2025. Next up, how do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Avoiding community tensions. That is the theme of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 8 a.m. It's what's destroying this country, and I'll be calling it out in no uncertain terms. It might get me cancelled, and if so, good, because that's the hill I'm going to die on. I'll be talking about woke political correctness that's destroying this country at 8 a.m. Don't miss it. Daily Express, Andrew, I will no longer use Duke of York title. Prince Andrew is giving up his remaining royal titles and honours, including the Duke of York, he announced last night. The royal will continue as a prince, which is his birthright as the son of a monarch, but the former Duke of York and his wife Sarah are to be stripped of their titles and will be now as close to commoners as it's possible to be. Let's get reaction from TalkSport's royal correspondent Rupert Bell. Good morning, Rupert. Now, did Prince Andrew jump or was he pushed?
I think the combination of both. I think the King basically said enough's enough, because every week there seems to be another headline that is besmirching the reputation of the royal family, and particularly, obviously, his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And I think in the end, Prince Andrew, as he is now known, realised that he had to accept that this was not a good look. But my goodness me, it's a long time in coming. The trouble is his arrogance has always stood in the way, and his lack of ability to read the room. The public have taken against him for a very long time in the main, and so I think the King, feeling that this is just a negative headline, they had no choice but to say, go away, we don't really want to see you. And the icing on the cake, I think, was the Duchess of Kent's funeral, where he sort of was preening next to Prince William, and people reacted to that because, you know, he does like to strut around at royal occasions, and that was part of his problem. So I feel the King said, and you've got to go. But even now, in that statement, he then says at the end, I still strongly deny having committed any wrongdoing. So I don't know whether he has seen the evidence, and still, if he feels that he's innocent, then he perhaps needs to test it in a court of law.
Has the King waited too long to deal with his younger brother?
I think it's a difficult one, because it's your brother, isn't it? And if you take away the pomp and circumstance, it's still your younger brother. And that is always one of the hardest decisions to make. But in the end, I think probably the King, and probably some advice from Prince William as well, saying, I think we have to deal with this, and we have to deal with it strongly. And by taking away his title as the Duke of York, and also his ex-wife's title as well, is really means that he is not just, he's persona non grata now with, and what he's going to do, God only knows, but he's still holed up in Royal Lodge, which he has a lease on, I think, till 2078 or something like that anyway. So will he just stay there? If he can continue to afford to be there, then he can. But where's the money coming from might always be the question with what's going on in his life.
Indeed. I've had a couple of text messages saying the guy has committed no crime. He's not been convicted of anything. So is he more sinned against than sinning?
Well, that's what he would say. But then why did the Queen and her family cough up, I think, in excess of $12 million? You know, what was going on here? This is what people don't understand. And then you see further emails with Jeffrey Epstein about, well, you know, we're going to come out of this on the other side. And then we've seen what helped Jeffrey Epstein go to Sarah Ferguson and the email trail between those two. I'm afraid he has spent his entire life living thinking he is the special one, but unfortunately that has led to his downfall. And he may be, we don't know the full facts of what went on, but circumstantial evidence suggests there was a lot of murky stuff potentially going on. And sinned against and sinned, I'm not sure.
If you look at Charles, Anne and Edward, they are faultless public figures who have served this country with dignity and distinction for decades. What went so wrong with the Queen's favourite son, Andrew?
Well, his arrogance, and not well liked. You know, that was the problem. Look, I was at prep school with him, and he wasn't the most popular kid on the block then, and that was between the ages of 8 and 13. So I think he's always had a sense of self-entitlement, whereas the others are aware of their service. You talk the Princess Royal. I mean, she is there dedicated to work for her brother. Prince Edward, it wasn't always smooth sailing for Prince Edward, but right now, he and the Duchess of Edinburgh are very valued members of the royal team. But Andrew always thought that he was better than the rest, and I think that's part of the problem. And could rise above everything, that whatever came to him. And ever since that disastrous interview with Emily Maitlis, it's been downhill all the way since then.
It's interesting that you went to prep school with him. I'd like to know where this...
And I think he was always given this favoured status, and that didn't help. That he could always, you know, the Queen would be by his side no matter what. And that didn't help long term. He also wasn't the brightest tool in the box as well. So I think you put that together with his arrogance, it has all led to the problems that he now faces.
Do you think his good looks were a factor too? Because he was quite a dashing prince back in the day, wasn't he, in his pomp?
Well, yeah, Randy Andy was his nickname back then, and he was in the Falklands War. He, you know, served in the Navy. You know, comes back as a dashing sort of serviceman after the Falklands War. So you thought the public would have been with him because he put his, you know, life on the line serving this country, which is, you know, seen as a very strong attribute within the royal family. But in the end, that arrogance and that lack of ability really went wrong from, you know, with Sarah Ferguson when they got married. Some of the antics, their marriage ended in the early 90s. Sarah Ferguson obviously then had some lurid headlines to deal with some of her antics, which brought further disgrace on the royal family. So I think the Queen's never let go of him in the sense, I've got to look after him. But unfortunately, since her passing, the King's patience has finally been tested, and he no longer has his title as the Duke of York, and he's no longer part of the Order of the Garter, which he loved being a part of, and that's all further humiliation for him.
Do you think it's possible that the access to and the accommodation at the Royal Lodge, which is a lovely, gorgeous place on the Windsor estate, do you think that that was a bargaining chip on the part of Prince Andrew, that he said to his brother, OK, I'll relinquish the titles, but I keep the Royal Lodge?
Well, it's not a lease, so, you know, legally, he's entitled to stay there. I think what the King wants to know is, well, you can stay there, but as long as you're not a financial burden to any other member of the royal family. And I think that, and he's saying, I can. So I think that's what Prince Andrew's defence is saying. If that goes from him, where does he end up? I mean, then he will be, what does he do? Well, anyway, what does he do full stop? Because presumably, if he's going to furnish that lifestyle, he's got to get some money coming in. But you look at some of the business money and people he's dealt with, particularly with relation to China, some of those might be crossing the line. So it's going to be a very difficult few years for Prince Andrew when he's now 65. What's he going to do now? He's still in good health. What is he going to occupy his time with? He can't just ride his horse around Windsor Great Park continuously or play the odd round of golf.
And it's a sorry outcome for the Duchess of York, who is now plain old ordinary Sarah Ferguson.
Yes, and the royal family over the years have been quite loyal to her, despite all her transgressions along the way. So I think even her now, to be, I suppose, demoted, as it were, to now plain old Sarah Ferguson, is, their patience finally ended with them. Their daughters, Eugenie and Beatrice, they remain very much in the royal fold and are seen as a safe pair of hands. But it must be, just from a family point of view, extremely difficult for their children seeing all this stuff written about their parents. And what do they feel? So it's quite interesting how it's going to work out for them going forward, because, again, it puts pressure on those two. But they only have to look at their parents and say, well, you've created this, what do we do? But how does that test their relationship with their parents?
Most definitely. Great to see you bright and early on a Saturday morning, Rupert. Have a cracking weekend. We'll catch up soon. My thanks to Talk's royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Next up, is a Rachel Reeves U-turn on the farmer family inheritance tax in the offing? I'll be asking a leading farmer next.
My home has been broken into, my files have been ransacked, somebody has been put in my office by a hostile state, and two parties are playing politics with it. Yeah. This is national security of the United Kingdom, and the government's response is not, as mine was, do everything you can to make sure the prosecution works, but no, process. Well, who the hell's side are you on? This isn't about the bureaucracy, this is about leadership. We're not sent here to be civil servants, we're sent here to lead the country and to make decisions.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, don't forget Dolan's dispatch in exactly 10 minutes' time, and I'll be dealing with the broken model of multicultural Britain and the ridiculous idea of community tensions and so-called community leaders. What's a community leader? Have you got a community leader? That is an idea that's not compatible with a free and integrated society. That's Dolan's dispatch in 10 minutes' time. Don't miss it. But first up, a developing story. Rachel Reeves was urged to U-turn on her inheritance tax raid on farmers after reports that the controversial policy could be tweaked. The government is said to be looking at changes to the so-called family farm tax in order to reduce the impact on small farms ahead of November's budget. From next April, farmers who were previously exempt from inheritance tax will face a 20% rate on combined agricultural and business property worth over £1 million or £3 million for couples. But the Conservatives, who have pledged to reverse the changes if they win the election, warned the proposals should be abandoned altogether. Well, let's get reaction now from a leading working farmer, Ben Aveling. Good morning, Ben. Thank you and welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Hi, Mark. It's a pleasure to be called a leading working farmer. You made my day.
You are. You're tending to the fields. You're putting food on our plates, and I salute you for that. You're in the tractor at the moment, are you?
So I'm in my recording studio / ATV.
OK, there you go. Listen, first of all, what's happening on the farm this morning? Tell me about your day.
OK, so first and foremost, I've got up, I fed the pigs, I fed the goats, I fed the lambs, I fed the cattle, we fed the chickens, we fed the turkeys, and now.
Well, that's it. You've had a very busy one. How are the pigs doing?
Yeah, they're noisy, so I wanted to get them fed before I came on air.
I'm sure they are. Listen, you do a great job. First of all, what do you make about the idea of a tweak to the inheritance tax policy? Would that be satisfactory to you?
Yeah, so I spoke to your producer the other day about this, and actually since speaking to your producer, there has been some movement on this story. There was a rumour of a tweak, and even Labour backbenchers, which I spoke to on the BBC this week on Politics Live, were even in my camp saying, yes, we've been lobbying on the backbenches. But word has it from DEFRA and other farming sources that the U-turn is not on the horizon, and so this lady is not for turning.
Can you explain to my viewers and listeners why this inheritance tax raid on the farming community is so devastating?
So first and foremost, let's put it into the perspective of your viewer and take farms out of it, like mine. It's actually a food security problem. So we produce food here, and it gives us the security of food on our shelves in supermarkets, and we're not reliant on imports. So fundamentally, if the farm tax raid happens and the land grab happens, which is what I believe it should be called, we could be facing even higher prices for our food because we'd be reliant on imports. And it would be the same kind of thing as what we're having with our energy prices at the moment. We're reliant on others for our energy, and food will become the same commodity. And as we all know, our energy bills have gone through the roof.
Well, it's my view, and I know it would need to be costed if I was Prime Minister, but I would actually give farmers tax breaks and not a tax raid, because it's so difficult. And I don't think people realise, perhaps in the corridors of power, how hard it is for farmers to make a living.
I've often said you're governed by people who aren't even out of bed yet when you're in the middle of your job.
Yeah.
And the idea that you're ruled by all of these regulations is one thing, and farmers have put up with that for decades. We've worked with the government for the subsidies, countryside stewardship, and the SFIs and things like that, which are sustainable incentives. And I think the word subsidy is bandied around too often, and people don't realise it's actually given by the government for farms to do a job in exchange for the cash to subsidise the public's food. So I think a little knowledge is dangerous in some cases. And actually, my job is to try and get the word of farming out there in general and try and get people to understand exactly what's going on, because it is a very niche industry. And so my job is to be the voice of it.
And I think people don't realise how sensitive farmers are to the climate, to changing weather, and to infectious diseases, and to inflation, and wars, you know, thousands of miles away, energy costs. There are so many issues that it seems that policymakers do not factor in for the daily life of a farmer. And I've just got to say to you, Ben, I salute what you do. And if I watch a show like Clarkson's Farm, or if I look at your videos on X, which are very compelling, my simple question is, who the hell would be a farmer in 2025? Why do you do it?
I don't know, Mark.
Because it's, at times, not wishing to diminish what, but it's thankless, isn't it, sometimes?
Well, let's get something straight. I'm in it for myself as well. You know, this isn't me being completely selfless. I want something that I can build on, an industry that I know, an industry that I understand. And I do have the option of farms are an incredible springboard for your family. Whether your children become farmers or not, I've got a child who's interested in becoming a doctor, for example, and the farm gives you the security to chase your dreams, not necessarily be a farm. My job is to make sure I pass that farm on to whoever wants it in a better state that I got given it. And fundamentally, it means I'm a custodian, not an owner, because most farms have got no interest in selling. The value of the farm's immaterial.
Yeah.
The only time we consider the value is if we have to borrow money against the farm to do a new project or invest.
Most definitely. What would you say to the argument that actually this is just targeted towards rich farmers who are sitting on millions of pounds worth of property?
So if they did this U-turn, that would pull that argument more into the forefront. But there are still family farms that have massive values, even though they might not be turning over a huge profit. I mean, a £5 to £10 million farm might not be making minimum wage. You know, at the end of the day, that's the real facts here, and they might still not be able to pay that tax bill. But what I would say is if they did it to 5 million or 10 million threshold, that would significantly pull out that massive risk of the small family farms.
Indeed. So no farms should be changing hands from generation to generation. They should never be sold, even if it's a rich farm.
Well, I think to myself, that's how we see things. I think we're in a culture of our fathers or grandfathers or whatever have the same kind of idea. So when you're, quote unquote, given the farm, you're never necessarily given it because you're still working it with your family. And it's something that you all just chip in and get on with and try your best to keep. I mean, if farmers were interested in that, every farm would have been sold day one, because that's fundamentally what we're talking about here. So if I was interested in the cash side of it, I would have just sold up. So I'm obviously not. And I know I'm the same as other farmers. We don't see it that way.
Most definitely. And it is clear, isn't it, that many farmers struggle to make ends meet. I mean, they're not getting rich doing this brutal work in all weathers at all times of the day.
No, so whenever anyone sees what they think is a rich farmer, if they are rich, it's usually a stroke of luck, like they managed to sell a little parcel of building land or something somewhere that doesn't affect their farm. I guarantee all of these rich farmers still have a hand in farming because it's their love, their life, their passion. Most farmers aren't rich. They're doing it for the love and they're doing it for their family, and they want to do something and give back something to society in a way that we feel we can. And I really enjoy doing something unique and that people want me to take pride in. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of noise around it, but there's a lot of positive noise, especially like on my YouTube channel. People are going mad for it, and they're really behind British farms.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you're a thinking man's Jeremy Clarkson. You're a thinking man's Caleb, Ben. Check out Ben's brilliant YouTube channel. It is Radmore Farm. Check it out. Entertaining and informative. just like this show. Listen, Ben, lovely to have you on the show. We'll catch up soon. Good luck with those pigs. They do make a racket, don't they? Ben Aveling there, farmer, at Radmore Farm on YouTube. Check it out. We're on YouTube as well. If you're listening on the radio, you can watch the show. And in 3 minutes' time, you can watch Dolan's Dispatch. 3 words have destroyed Britain. Avoiding community tensions. I'll be tackling the scourge of woke political correctness in our public institutions, and I'm not pulling my punches. Dolan's Dispatch next.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. The phrase special relationship, seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defense relationship in the world.
As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any 2 nations in human history.
We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. He's really let me down.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning to you. It is 3 minutes past 8. Your weekend starts here. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A big 2 hours to come. The Aston Villa-Israel football row rages on, with the news today that our Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood knew all about the ban. She knew it had been agreed upon. So how much did the Prime Minister know in what looks to be a fresh new scandal engulfing the government? Talking of scandals, Prince Andrew is now as close as he'll ever be to being an ordinary man, having lost all of his titles, including membership of the Order of the Garter, and he is no longer the Duke of York. But should he cease to be Prince altogether? And should he be turfed out of the 30-bedroom Royal Lodge? Has King Charles done enough to deal with the black sheep of the royal family? And my priority here on the Home of Common Sense is to get your common sense views on the radio and on TV. Book your place on the show. Kieran is taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. You can send a voice note or text the word TALK and your message to 87222. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And as always, at this time every Saturday and Sunday, it is time for Dolan's Dispatch. 3 words have got us into this mess. Avoiding community tensions. How often have you heard that expression? Avoiding community tensions. A phrase that has been used for years, if not decades, to excuse the inexcusable. Turning a blind eye to grooming gangs, which may have victimised 250,000 young British girls. How did it happen? By avoiding community tensions. Police officers sat like idiots at a bizarre kangaroo court in Wakefield in West Yorkshire, nodding along like the Churchill dog as Muslim clerics berated an autistic teenager who accidentally scuffed a copy of the Quran. The cops participated in this unauthorised show trial. Why? To avoid community tensions. What about the Batley school teacher who showed an image of the Prophet Muhammad as an educational tool in a media studies lesson, hounded out of his job by the mob? Nothing done to protect him because community tensions. This is a man with a wife and kids who remains in hiding to this day, whilst the authorities refuse to stand up to the thugs threatening his life. And why do they refuse? Community tensions. The weekly hate marches in our great cities, the ones that have left Jewish people afraid to leave their homes or send their children to school wearing religious symbols, all of it tolerated to avoid community tensions. The cenotaph and the memorials in central London to our war dead is nothing sacred. Those symbols desecrated by pro-Palestinian activists. The statue of our greatest ever leader, Winston Churchill, boxed off for fear it would be attacked. All of this tolerated, often encouraged by a conniving, sympathetic media to avoid community tensions. Islamism, as distinct from Islam, Islamism is a wicked, medieval, illiberal ideology that declares anyone who is not of the faith to be an enemy and to be destroyed. And that's why Israel's fight against Hamas in Gaza was our fight too. But too many people in this country didn't realise that and don't know that. You can love or hate Benjamin Netanyahu all you like, but the Israeli Prime Minister was absolutely right when he said that Jewish people may be the current focus, but you'll be next. Because the jihadis on our doorstep may hate Jews, but they hate us too. But the university-educated middle-class numpties, Hamas's useful idiots, have cheered on this anti-British, anti-Western ideology. By going on these marches and campaigning on university campuses, they've cheered on the global intifada, which, by the way, means planting bombs in shopping centres and on public transport. They've cheered it on to win brownie points at their North London dinner parties. And don't forget the Queers for Palestine. Do you remember the Queers for Palestine? Who would be thrown off buildings in Gaza for being gay or trans. Talk about turkeys voting for Christmas. They can get stuffed. What about the biological, societal crime of first cousin marriage, which causes shocking deformities and a lifetime of dependency on the state? It shouldn't be allowed, but it is within certain communities in this country. Why? To avoid community tensions. When statistics revealed how many Pakistani Brits practice first cousin marriage, many assumed it was already illegal. Well, it's not. This medically dangerous, frankly immoral tradition has not only been tolerated, It's been endorsed by our own NHS, which is now so ideologically captured that it recently claimed that first cousin marriage is, and I quote, a huge benefit to certain communities. A benefit? Many of these poor children live with severe congenital conditions and need lifelong care. That's not a benefit. That's a tragedy and a huge, incalculable cost to the British taxpayer. But hey, community tensions. And now this week, a new low. An independent MP lobbying to stop an Israeli football team's fans from playing Aston Villa, one of Britain's most historic football clubs. Because the mere sight of Jewish fans in the West Midlands might cause, and I quote, anger and offence. Do me a favour. We're told that this has got to be avoided because of community tensions. Here we go again. And the pathetic West Midlands police fold to the mob. They can't police, apparently, 1,000 away fans at a football match. So they fold to the mob, just as they did on the peace marches, just as they did in Batley, in Wakefield, and just as they did in Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford and beyond, when the grooming gangs committed their evil crimes. All because of community tensions. And now a few Israeli football fans aren't safe or welcome in Britain to watch a sport that we invented, one which serves to unite people. This week, the beautiful game turned ugly. And isn't it ironic that the left finds racism everywhere? They do, don't they? The left, they find racism everywhere. Everything's racist, isn't it? Mathematics is racist. Merit, apparently, is racist. The countryside, very racist. Knitting, turning up to work on time, that's racist. Cottage cheese is probably racist. Is cottage cheese racist? It probably is, especially when it's got pineapple chunks in it. Yet, when one community poses an open threat to Jewish visitors to this country, it is deafening silence. Where are the cries of racism now? Paging Gary Lineker, Gary Neville, Richard Bacon, paging Sir Lenny Henry, deafening in their silence about actual racism in modern Britain. Now, things are going to get worse, far worse, because we have two-tier policing in a two-tier country led by a two-tier Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. The man who fed the Hamas monster by recognising Palestine whilst the war was still raging. The man who forgot to wear a poppy whilst recording a video message to British Muslims, despite wearing one all day. And of course, Sir Keir Starmer, the man who now wants to introduce a chilling new law, a new definition of Islamophobia. Now, anti-Muslim hatred is wrong, vile and un-British. But this proposed Islamophobia law would make it impossible to criticise a religion, and that is, of course, a blasphemy law by the back door. Now, had such a law existed earlier, we might never have been able to expose the grooming gangs, the hate preachers, or the anti-Semitic marches. And we wouldn't have been able to defend the British values that hold this country together. Now, if Jewish football fans are not safe to attend a match in Britain, a sport, by the way, meant to bring fans together, then, quite frankly, none of us are safe. Now, the vast majority of British Muslims are decent, law-abiding citizens. They're our friends, our neighbours, our colleagues. They are listeners and viewers to this show, and they make a huge contribution to this country. But there is a large and toxic minority who hate not just Jews, but anyone who believes in freedom, equality and democracy. And too many within the wider Muslim community, along with our police and political class, tolerate this hatred, making excuses, wringing their hands, talking about healing after every brutal attack. Before we pass an Islamophobia law, let me just state the truth very plainly. Every major terrorist attack in Britain in recent memory has been carried out by Islamic extremists, right? The vast, vast majority. Under Starmer's proposed Islamophobia law, A factual statement like that could get you arrested. So we're moving from turning a blind eye to something far worse, to being legally silenced. And that silence will allow a dangerous poison to spread further, one that threatens our safety, erodes our freedom, and darkens our national life. So here's the question. Is the damage done? Is the genie out of the bottle? Have we tolerated and excused extremism for so long that it's now embedded in parts of our society and even represented in Parliament by independent MPs who lobbied for and celebrated the ban on these Israeli fans in a not even faintly disguised flourish of anti-Semitism? And how fitting that this latest scandal centres on football, another British institution corrupted by the woke mind virus. Players taking the knee to appease the divisive, discredited BLM movement, whilst staying silent when real racism rears its ugly head. And let's be honest, the phrase community tensions gives the game away. The very word community hints at the very failure of Britain's multicultural experiment. There shouldn't be separate communities based on race or religion or anything else. There should be one community, the community of the British people. Now, we are a multi-ethnic society, no problem there. I'm Irish myself. But the community that I belong to is not the Irish community, the Republic of Ireland and all the rest of it. It is the British community. Our elites, the police, the media, they love to divide us up to keep power by keeping us separate, and they are cowards. That's why they cling to the language of community relations. Now, I recognise only one community, whatever its colour, religion or background, and that community is the British people. And if you don't stand with that community, you don't belong. And as for community leaders, what the hell, executive producer Dean Spencer, what the hell is a community leader? What on earth? I haven't got a community leader. Have you got a community leader? 0344499 mother. I've got an MP, and may God help us, I've got the Prime Minister. Those are my leaders for my sins. I haven't got a community leader. The very idea of a community leader is anathema to the concept of an integrated, free society. So, in conclusion, this football match must go ahead. It must welcome fans from Israel. The streets of our cities must be safe for everyone, including Jewish people. No exceptions. And it's the job of the police to make sure that that happens. Sod community tensions. Sod 'em. I don't care about community tensions. I couldn't care less, as long as no law is being broken. But here's the hard truth. On these so-called peace marches, the police have been outnumbered. They couldn't arrest everyone waving anti-Semitic banners or chanting hate, which means that the battle may already be lost. Because this liberal cowardice, this slavish pandering to community tensions, has let hatred and a litany of dark crimes to take root. The genie is now out of the bottle, and it may be too big to go back in. Your reaction, 03444991000. Josie is in Leicester in the East Midlands. Morning, Josie. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning. How are you? You okay?
I'm very, very well. And I've got to say, I'm very triggered by the term community tensions, and I think it's landed us where we are today. What's your view?
100%, yeah. In the last 2.5 years, in Leicester especially, we've had, oh God, I'll say the third world, like the previous caller did about half an hour ago. And these people are here on a visa, family student visas. They can't even speak English, so how the hell did they even enter the country? Now, these are 3-year visas, apart from Boris's wave that came in, so they all need to go back. So who's monitoring this, and who is making sure that these people do return back? The schools, you know, once upon a time, the schools are now 90% of ethnic minority in certain areas like LE3, LE4, LE5. It's terrible. And now they're spreading into like other parts of the city. We can't cope with this. So my thing is, I'm British Asian, and I say, Stan, I'm a Reform member, and I want everybody that has worked hard in this country, part of the community from the 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s, because let's face it, after that, it started to get destroyed. Communities, cities, towns. I have never seen it this bad, though. This is so bad.
And Josie, speaking as a British Asian yourself,
yeah,
why is it a problem if schools in the East Midlands are 90% ethnic?
Because they don't speak English. See, the difference is when people came earlier when they came in the 50s, 60s, they did have English knowledge. Like, you know, my parents knew English. My dad was, had his A-levels. He had, a background. He went to university before he came here. So there was so much intelligence of people that they integrated so much better. But you can't integrate mass migration that don't speak English, no skills. Where are they going to go? There's no factories, there's no manufacturing. So where are they going to learn all these basic English skills? They're not. They don't work. These people don't work. I'd love to. I was a single parent, and I would love to have taken my child to school in the morning and pick up in the 3:30. 3:30, the parents are all there picking up their kids. I'm not saying that's something wrong with that, but what I'm saying is I had to work. I didn't have that privilege, but they've got that privilege of coming straight from a third world country, getting a school place, right? No council tax bills because they all live 15 to 20 in a house. How is that even fair?
And Josie, I think you've confirmed my suspicion, which I revealed last weekend, which is that I believe that Reform will win the next election and they'll be swept to power on a multi-ethnic vote.
Yes, definitely. It has to be. Everybody that came here in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that worked hard, and all generation from grandparents to parents to... I'm a fourth generation. And at the end of the day, every one of us have worked hard, not relied on the state, not done anything. We've all managed to get onto the property ladder by working hard. These people are getting benefits. You've got all these foreign people on benefits. Benefits shouldn't even be a question. It shouldn't even enter. I mean, they're all having children, so they think they get the family right here under the ECHR. I mean, it's almost like they've entered, but you've got no way of saying, bye, you've had your time, bye.
I mean, most people, Josie, have no objection to immigration when folks come to the UK, like your family, like my parents as well. My folks came in the early 60s to work, to become British, to participate in our traditions and our culture, to follow the law, to not take benefits. I think that's obviously a form of immigration that most of my viewers and listeners would support and welcome. That's not what we've had in recent years. But my question to you, Josie, is is there a danger that this conversation risks painting everyone with the same brush and demonising all immigrant families, many of whom do make a massive contribution?
I don't think they do. I don't think the latest people that have come here has made an impact, because low-skilled work is not an impact. You know, if they are coming here with high skills, you're welcome. But they're not high.
But Josie, exactly. But my concern was, are you not worried that anyone with a brown face will just be tarred with the same brush? It's like you're, of sort of a ethnic background, therefore you need to go, sort of thing. Is there a concern about that?
No, there wasn't never a concern in Leicester. Leicester's always been a really great, diverse city.
Yeah.
But I've never seen it like this. I have never in my life seen it like this. I'm frightened to, I go out, I get stared at. And when I get stared at, I mean, stared to the fact that they stare you through your skin and right through your bones. It's like having an X-ray stared by a third world man.
Why and what, Josie? Why are they staring at you? Is that sort of harassment of a sexual nature? Would you say?
I would say more to because they've never seen British Asian people, or the colouring of his skin is more fairer, should I say, rather than you're not a darker Asian skin. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
You're a modern
So you're
Asian
different.
British, but yeah, you're different. So it's almost like, and it's like they're hanging around. Like people say, they hang around schools, they hang around. This is daytime. You're not free to do what you want to do. You feel uncomfortable. I've never felt uncomfortable like I have done in the last 3 years. I would say in the last 3 years in Leicester, the fabrication of this city, my God, it has changed.
Josie, thank you for a brave and important call. Please call me again soon, 0344 499 1000. We've got a full switchboard. It's melted. It's steaming as we speak. We're going to continue this conversation. Is the Israel-Aston Villa football route a demonstration of Britain's failed multicultural experiment? Can a future administration fix this? We'll discuss that next.
They're making a mess of things. They don't know what they're doing. They're incompetent. They're doing the wrong policies. But I think the real reason is because they've been thinking about how do we deal with Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is going to be taking all our seats with Reform UK. Yeah. He's going to be breaking down the red wall. And so they're thinking, they thought about, oh, let's stand close to him. Right. Let's try and out-Farage. And then they've settled on trying to just attack him and blame Brexit and blame him for everything in the hope that they'll shore up some of their support if and when there's going to be an election.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Does the Israel-Aston Villa football row demonstrate Britain's failing multicultural experiment? So many texts are coming through. Ken has said, Mark, we keep hearing about the minority of Muslims being Islamist and causing issues. How much of a minority is it? I don't hear much from the majority of peaceful Muslims condemning the Islamists. Where is the voice of the majority supporting the nation? That's Ken in Lancashire. Andy from Liverpool says, can anyone prove how much we've benefited from immigration, or is it just another lie that we've been told in the interest of community cohesion? Good morning, Mark, says Mark in Croydon. This issue can't be fixed now due to the growing Islamists in the UK who have taken over areas like Birmingham and only live by their rules and laws. Even the police check with so-called community leaders before acting. Does that happen anywhere else? What on earth is a community leader? I don't have one. I've got an MP, and for my sins, may God help us, I've got the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. The expression community leader is not compatible with a free or integrated society. This from Erois, who says a bedbound terminally ill friend has NHS carers visiting. Last week, her bank phoned as there was suspicious activity on her account. It transpired the carers had stolen the card. The NHS will not take action because there are two of them and can't single one out. Also because they've had a difficult life. You do worry, don't you, about the spectre of political correctness which is destroying this country. Let's get reaction now from my studio guest, and it is the Conservative councillor Matthew Goodwin-Freeman. Top of the morning, Matthew.
Morning, how are you, Mark?
Very well. Do you think that this Aston Villa football row is a story that goes beyond sport and beyond policing? This is a wider cultural conversation we're now having.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the state of Britain in 2025. We have allowed anti-Semitism to run rife on our streets to the point now where we can't even police a football game. We're too scared about possible tensions that might happen from some Israeli fans turning up to an area of Muslim majority. I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. The police are able to be out there on the streets of London patrolling hate marches every single weekend. No doubt there'll be more marches this weekend, but they can't police a football game. What we need to do, and what we need to see the Home Office do, is say, do you know what? Ban the hate marches, get those police back into the communities, and maybe send a couple of the police that would have been here doing the hate policing the hate marches, get them to go up to Aston Villa to patrol the game. That would be the way to do this. But instead, we have the Home Secretary and this government now absolutely panicking, but apparently they've known about this all week.
Oh, well, let's take a voice note from Mark in Lancashire on this one. Take it away, Mark.
Yeah, good morning, Mark. It's Mark in Lancashire. The worst and most disturbing part for me about these community leaders is when I see the police going to speak to them to discuss how their communities are going to be policed, just as though it's some sort of negotiation. Well, we can apply some rules rigorously that you don't mind, and some we can have a bit of a negotiation about. We can maybe not apply those. We can interpret some laws for you, you know, so that you don't get upset. I mean, nobody's ever asked me how I want to be policed or how my community wants to be policed. The laws are there for everybody, and that really, really winds me up. It really annoys me. That's the most visible aspect of a two-tier police in Britain that you can see all the time.
Mark, thank you for that cracking voice note. This is Nick in Loughborough.
Morning, Mark. It's Nick from Loughborough. Hats off to you and Mike Neville for pointing out the elephant in the room. And Mike Neville hit the nail on the head when he said, diversity is not our strength, unity is. And that's correct. Diversity has been forced upon us by successive governments, from the Conservatives and the Labour, because diversity weakens us. It divides us, and division is what they seek, because we are far easier to govern and ultimately control.
Powerful, powerful message. Thank you for that, Nick. Leslie has messaged the programme. Good morning, Mark. Your Dolan's dispatch was spot on this morning. I've been saying that Starmer and his party are scared of upsetting the Muslim community. That is what two-tier policing was all about. the majority of the Muslim community do not and will not integrate. Why? Because they haven't had to. That's why Tories and Labour have allowed this to happen to our once great country. Jewish people have never been any trouble to our country. They've never tried to rule us. They've kept their heads down, worked hard, unlike the Muslim community. My fear is for my family. We've destroyed their future. Well, I mean, that is a very powerful message from Leslie. And this is a difficult conversation to have about the Muslim community, because you don't want to demonise the British Muslims who work hard, who participate in the British, you know, the British project, and the people who are Muslim watching and listening to this show. So how do you differentiate?
Well, what I'd like is I'd like to hear from the majority of good British Muslims to come out and condemn this. That's what I'd like to hear. Because we talk all the time, Ken said in his comment, you know, it's the minority of Muslims that are causing these issues, these problems, these tensions. We always hear it's the minority. Well, where is that majority coming out and saying this is unacceptable? Of course they can come to this football game. I'll be there to support them. I'll be there to make sure that they're safe and can come through. Where is that majority? Because we never hear from them. Instead, we get Islamic preachers going on their shows saying that we're going to show no mercy to these Israeli away fans. I'm sorry, but if that preacher tweeted that, like Lucy Connolly did on her Twitter, surely they should be arrested, locked up for maybe 31 months. But no, they get away with it on their own shows. This is the definition of two-tier. And you can see what it's been like this morning. We've had Ken, Andy, Mark, Eros, another Mark, Nick and Leslie all getting in touch saying that it is about unity. It's not about diversity, it's about unity, integration, feeling pride of British values, putting Britain ahead of yourself. And we're not seeing that. So my question would be, we always hear that it's the minority of troublemakers, the minority of Muslims. Well, where is that majority of Muslims coming out saying, enough's enough, this isn't acceptable, guys. We've got to pull ourselves together and start being kind to the country that's hosting us.
Has Robert Jenrick been proved right when he described Birmingham as effectively a cultural and societal hot mess? Is he on the right side of the argument? We'll debate that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Clive in Solihull's message to show. Great show, Mark. Our once great country is finished. I'm just wondering if it will be run by the Chinese or Islamists in the future. Our only chance is reform. but they need to get organised quickly. How about this from James in Hamilton in Scotland? That lady, your caller Josie, is 100% correct. I have 2 schools at the end of my street, and the amount of foreign-born children that attend both and their parents don't work. They pick their children up and drop off. They don't work or even try to integrate with other children outside of school. Lucky to get an English-speaking taxi driver in the past 3 years. And Sharon, Josie in Leicester is absolutely right. As a British person, you should work hard. But if you do, you get nothing in return. Yet these people come here and get everything for free and don't contribute anything. Sharon, thank you for that. And Sharon also says, Jenrick, do not back down. You're speaking on behalf of the British people. Well, Matthew Goodwin Freeman is a Conservative councillor. Do you think that Robert Jenrick was right to call out what's happening in Birmingham?
Yeah, Robert Jenrick was absolutely right. He is saying what a lot of people are thinking, but everyone is worried about saying out loud. And that's where finally we're seeing this change in this country. Political correctness out the window, say what you see. It's almost like catchphrase, you know. Yeah. You have to say it as it is. We have to start talking about these things. We have to start talking about parts of this country where, frankly, I as a white person would not feel safe to go. We wouldn't let our children, young girls, walk alone. We have to start talking about this, because if you don't address the issue, you are never going to solve the issue. And this is all coming back down to fairness. That is the key word in all this, fairness. Is it fair that pockets of this country do not integrate? Is it fair that British people work hard day and night, get up early to come do shows like this, work damn hard, and then there's others sitting around at home doing absolutely nothing who get paid more? Is that fair? It's all about fairness. And finally, we've hit a tipping point where we say in this country, do you know what? What's happening at the moment isn't fair. We're going to call a spade a spade. We're going to start talking about these things. And I don't care what ist you throw at me. Call me racist, sexist, whatever you want to call me. This is happening. And we have to start calling it out.
Dean in London feels the same way. Good morning, Mark. I'm sick and tired of being blamed for the non-integration of immigrants into this country. Many over the years who have come here do integrate. But what about those who have no intention of ever doing so? How can us Brits be blamed for their thoughts and feelings? Do you consider the Conservative Party to be culpable in what's happened to this country?
I think the Conservatives have a lot of responsibility to have, and that's why we're not in government anymore. The Conservatives got kicked out of the election. I think, yes, absolutely, we lost control of borders, we lost control of immigration, and so as a result, out of number 10, in comes this Labour landslide. So now, the point is, it almost doesn't really matter the political colour of who's running this country. We need them to do well. And at the moment, you know, we messed up, that's why we got kicked out. Now we've got this Labour government, and we're all hoping and praying that they get a hold of this issue, but they're not going to. So now we're all looking to the future and going, right, who is going to come in and have this radical change, finally put British interests first, and who's going to do that? And, you know, that's what we're seeing.
Kyle is in Bromley. Good morning, Kyle. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Hi, good morning, Mark.
Lovely to have you on the show. What do you make of all of this?
Well, Mark, you continually hear this phrase from our politicians and others saying that diversity is our strength. And the British people, the indigenous British people, need to realize that diversity is their strength. It's not your strength, it's their strength. And as the numbers of immigrants population grow in this country, they will eventually crush the indigenous people. You will lose control of your country, just like you've lost control of Birmingham, you've lost control of Leicester, probably Manchester, you've lost control of London. Eventually, this will be the story of the entire British Isles. If people don't wake up and realize that they are being gaslit by politicians to accept more and more immigration, and this thing of integration, this is another layer of lie that you now have to integrate with these people. Why do British people have to integrate with people flooding into their country? They don't have to. They shouldn't be coming in. This diversity is, to me, it's a negative, very negative term. When I hear the word diversity, I immediately think, okay, crime, decay, destruction of Britain. That's what diversity means to me.
However, Kyle, what happens if you have a Muslim optometrist, an African nurse, or a British Asian doctor? I mean, you know, there are millions upon millions of people in this country who are of an ethnic background, who are proud Brits, without whom, you know, we would struggle.
maybe you could have worked with those people. I believe that the immigrant population should have been managed to within 5% of the total population. And sure, that would have included people like you've just mentioned, which I think are a very small minority of the immigrant population, to be honest. You could have worked with them, but why build a nation on immigrant labor or even immigrant skills? Why not focus on building your own skills? Why do we not have native British optometrists and doctors? We used to have them. Why do we no longer have them? And then you've got the question of DEI. If we need these people so badly, why do we also need DEI? The two can't work together. Maybe there's one or the other. DEI is because we actually don't need these people, but they want to force them into our institutions and into our workplaces. Yes, you're right. There are many people who come and serve the country well, and we should welcome them and work with them. And if we only had those people, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Kyle in Bromley, thank you very much for a powerful call. What do you make of what Kyle had to say, Matthew?
Kyle is absolutely spot on. My first ever interview that I ever got invited on TV was about the fact that there were 2.5 million British people on job seekers allowance looking for jobs, and there were 2 million vacancies in the country at the time.
Yeah.
I made the argument that you could solve this overnight. You give those 2.5 million people, here's the list of jobs, you have 4 weeks to pick a job and go and do it. I don't care if it's miles below what you wanted to do before you ended up unemployed. You have to take a job. My first ever job was being a cleaner after school. A couple of hours after school, cleaning the desks, cleaning the classrooms, cleaning the toilets. Why? Not because that's the career and job I wanted, but because it was a bit of extra money. I wanted some extra money in my pocket, and I took the job that was available. That is the point. There is no job below someone if you don't have a job. And we have got to start being strong in this country and saying to the people who are on job seekers allowance, you can't live a life looking for a job. These are vacancies, these are there, you have to take it. And not everyone's going to want to do that. Not everyone's going to want to take a job that's, a lot below where they were. But it's something back on your CV, getting you those skills, using those training again, and getting you back into the world of work. And then you can move somewhere else. You might end up, moving to a different job or back into the career you want. But it's getting you off doing nothing. And I think that's what Kyle's getting to the root of this. We have no problem with immigrants coming over and doing qualified, good jobs. We don't mind people coming over filling good jobs. But there are millions and millions of people in this country doing nothing, and there are millions and millions of vacancies. We need a government to be strong and put those people into those jobs.
Well, one statistic that should stop you in your tracks, because we do want everyone to work and make a contribution, 10% of British Somali adults are in full-time work. 10%.
Just 10?
Yeah.
Flipping it.
So that's pretty...
I will mind my frustration. That I would... do you know what I would actually do? I would suspend visas, asylum claims and things like that from Somalia until we get that number up. That is what Donald Trump has done in America, using visas and tariffs as soft power to get deals and negotiations done. Let's have a bit of that here in Britain.
And I think maybe we should have a look at the benefit system as well.
Yeah.
Because it could be that if you only, the only way to survive is to work. If it paid to work, it might improve the fabric of our society. And it's possible that some people who aren't contributing might not want to stay.
Yep.
Next up, we're going to look at Reform and Nigel Farage, because he is the heir apparent. They're ahead in the polls. So can Nigel Farage fix Britain's broken society? That's next.
One thing that I think that one concern that people do have is about, you know, the wider capability of espionage that comes from this super embassy, right? And that's on these alleged cables, which we haven't had confirmation of their existence yet. So it would be really, really good if the intelligence services would give us their assessment on the record of what they think those are. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's not possible because it's classified, but it seems pretty important to this decision if they think that the risk can be managed or not at all. If they don't think the risk can be managed, we shouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Demetrius is not happy with me and says, Mark, please stop spouting the rubbish that Islamism is different from Islam. It's the same thing apart from one shows its true ugly side and the other hides it until they become a majority. Ian, Mark, there's no difference between Islam and Islamism. That difference is used by people like you to avoid community tensions. Therefore, you're actually part of the problem. Listen, that's a very, very fair set of points, and thank you for making them. Keep those opinions coming. This is a voice note from Paul in Hartlepool.
Good morning, Mark. Paul up in Hartlepool. Sadly, the police have no public order capability whatsoever now. The public order units within the police, or the PSU as they were called, were generally made up of former service personnel who were well trained, fit and strong and able to deal with public order situations. We've now got small officers that are 5 stone soaking wet and 5 foot in height that simply can't deal with it. We've also got senior officers such as the guy in Essex, Chief Constable in Essex, the one in London, who simply have no idea how to deal with public order situations. And as long as this carries on, we're not going to deal with the problem at all. Initially, we should go to aid to civil power and bring in 2 or 3 battalions to actually control the streets properly and ensure that Israeli supporters can go and watch a football match in the United Kingdom. What a dreadful mess we're in. Great show, thanks. Good morning.
Thank you, Paul. Barry says, good morning, Mark. What has happened at Aston Villa is a window into the future of the country and probably Europe. We've been betrayed by cowards. Only the United States can help us out of this crisis and shambles. Well, I don't know whether America will come to our rescue, Matthew Goodwin Freeman. But what about, if we're to believe the polls, our next Prime Minister, Nigel Farage, might do it?
Well, I mean, that's the hope that people are thinking. People are hoping that, you know, reform will come in and do what other parties have promised but never acted on. And I really hope, regardless of party politics, regardless of who comes in, politicians have got to start keeping to their word. People are fed up. People are so fed up. Look at every single call, look at every single comment that's been coming in. People want things done. And so often it's the system, we can't, the civil service, well, frankly, you, as the British public, elect politicians. And if the politicians are elected, it's their say that happens. And that's what I'm hoping we have at the next general election. Whichever party comes in has to deliver and has to be willing to rip up the system if it has to.
Is it embarrassing that the Tories are not the obvious solution to this problem for you?
Well, I mean, you know, as a Conservative councillor, as someone who's been a Conservative for years, I've been as frustrated as anybody over the last year trying to get the Conservatives to wake up and change, bring a bit of that reform element of, you know, actually we're going to do stuff. We don't care what the system says. We're going to deliver. And I've not been hearing it. I know obviously Kemi had her speech at conference, which blew people out the park with, you know, how bold and positive and hopeful it was. I want to now see that delivered. But yeah, absolutely, I'm frustrated that the Conservatives are down where they are in the polls. I don't mind the fact that Reform are looking like they're going to be the next government, because I think we need that shake-up. We need that shake-up in this country of actually enough. The system's broken. We need politicians to deliver and keep to their word. And if it takes Reform to do that, then that will be better for the country. Sometimes the patient doesn't like the medicine, but it needs it.
Yeah, the Conservative Party as an organisation, it doesn't have the political will or the courage to tackle this head on, does it?
I think that's very, very true. I struggle to see in the Conservative Party how we navigate a course now back to being anything at the next general election.
Yeah.
I get what happened with Kemi's speech, that turn, that optimism. I hope that carries on, and we've seen a couple of good performances at Prime Minister's questions. You know, the Conservatives are still the opposition in Parliament, but you're absolutely right, the public are crying out for reform, and ironically, there's a party called Reform.
Actually there. Marge on British policing, another voice note.
Good morning, Mark. In regards to this community policing or the lack of in Birmingham, all I can say is I grew up in Northern Ireland and there was a no-go zone for the police back in the day, and they basically policed themselves until such times as there were proper meetings held, and basically they were told, no, your religious leaders cannot have the say for you. What you have to do is you have to work within the law of the land. And the law of the land has nothing to do with community leaders. It has nothing to do with social cohesion. It is simply the law of the land.
Absolutely.
There you go. Powerful words there from Marge. Thank you for that. And that's a definite issue. Chris is in Epsom. Chris, welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Yeah, morning, Mark. Nice to talk to you again.
You
Listen,
too.
I know we're coming up towards the news, so I'll be as quick as
What
I
a
can.
professional you are, Chris. You're going to take my job soon.
Now, I'm a practicing Christian. Recently gone back to church. My girlfriend is actually a Muslim. My girlfriend of 7 years. Now, the problem that we have is that she is what you would say. She follows Islam in effect of she'll do Ramadan, she'll fast, and she'll pray to Allah, but she's never read the Quran. She's never read the Hadith, as have many in this country that have not. What we've done is we've imported the 8th century kind of Islam, and this is a major problem. And as for what's happened with Birmingham and Aston Villa, I'm afraid that, I don't know if you've seen the interview given by the chief of police up there, that he's consulted with the community leaders.
I know.
I don't give a toss about that. They're self-appointed and they're nothing. All right? He needs to be removed from his position because he is not fit for purpose. The police need to be able to tell the Israelis, right? And it's Israelis. Some of them will be Arabs as well. Arab Israelis. Some of them will be Jews. Some of them want to come and watch that football match. If the police can't do it, we have a military that can back them up. If this doesn't stop, if this does not get stopped, the next thing will be you can't walk a dog down the street because there's too many, it's against Islam, it's haram. You can't walk, as a Jew, you can't walk to your synagogue on a Saturday because we find it offensive, because it is in our area. This is the start of a very slippery slope, and it needs to be come down on very, very hard. Also, all face coverings need to be banned, and we need to put a ban on the Muslim Brotherhood, as is most of the rest of the civilized world, and all the NGOs and charities that spill money into this takeover and decline of the West.
Chris, what a powerful call, and I don't disagree with you. Labour won't do any of those things because here's the issue, it will cost them votes.
Yeah,
and so our governing party is compromised in this issue.
Well, I think it goes back to something that Marge said, the law of the land. That, for me, is the key phrase of this. If you want to come to this country, you want to come to this country. You don't want to bring your country and make it this. That is the point. If you come to Britain, you want to be in Britain. And we need to start saying enough's enough. Enough is enough. You cannot bring in Sharia law. You cannot bring in Sharia courts. You cannot bring in your way of living in our society. We need to start saying no. Because if you flip it on the other side, would I be able to go to a Muslim majority country and implement my will in areas and stop the native Muslim population being in those areas? No, I wouldn't. So we have to start saying enough is enough. This is Britain, and we need to start putting British interests first. It is about unity, it's not about diversity.
What a treat to have you in the studio, Matthew. We'll catch up very soon. Matthew Goodwin-Freeman, a Conservative councillor. Where can people find you on social media?
Everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, everything. Absolutely. Just find me. I'm here now and always there. I'm just not Matt Goodwin. Unfortunately, as much as I'd love the following, I'm not him.
There's only one. Matthew Goodwin-Freeman, you're one in a million. Thank you for that. Listen, so much more to come. including this Aston Villa-Israel row. Is it going to engulf our government? We'll discuss that next.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. The phrase special relationship, seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defense relationship in the world.
As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history.
We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning, it is 3 minutes past 9. Your weekend starts here. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A big hour to come. The Aston Villa-Israel football row rages on with the news that our Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood knew about the ban on Israeli fans. How much did the Prime Minister know in what looks to be a fresh new scandal engulfing the government? Talking of scandal, Prince Andrew is now as close as he'll ever be to being an ordinary man. A civilian, plain old Andrew, having lost all of his titles, including membership of the Order of the Garter, and he's no longer the Duke of York. But should he cease to be Prince as well? And should he be turfed out of the 30-bedroom palatial royal lodge? And has his brother, the King, done enough to deal with the black sheep of the family? There are no black sheep in the family of Talk Breakfast. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Kieran is taking your calls this morning, a busy switchboard. You can text your message and the word talk to 87222. Send us a voice note as well. Those are starting to pile up. And in a Talk Breakfast exclusive, we'll be speaking to the teacher who lost his job for the great crime of waving the British flag. He tells us his amazing story in a Talk Breakfast exclusive before the end of the hour. But looking at the big political stories of the day, who better to welcome into the studio than the Sun on Sunday's political editor, Kate Ferguson. Good morning, Kate. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Is the Israel-Aston Villa football row a political headache for the Prime Minister?
Yeah, I mean, this is a horrific row to have on his watch. I just want to say something about this first of all. We're told that the fans were banned from going to this match, or a proposed ban's been proposed because of their safety. But it's clear, isn't it, that the people behind the calls for this ban actually support total cultural boycott of Israel. So this safety argument, I think, is a total misnomer. All of the local politicians, all of the MPs that have backed the ban, Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana, they don't agree with Israeli fans, any Israeli figures coming to this country because they believe in a cultural boycott of Israel. So this is kind of that's really what's going on here. I don't think it's so much about the safety of football fans. It's about a hardcore of political leaders locally in the Birmingham area, but also people wading in nationally who just don't want these fans to come here. And I think that's an appalling place for our country to be.
And it's the intervention of an independent MP that demonstrates that, yes, to a small extent, but Britain is now seeing more and more sectarian politics.
It's so alarming, the sectarian politics that's been quietly erupting in many of our towns and cities. You know, and nationally, that might not always be so obvious to people on a national picture, but go into places in the Midlands, go into places like Birmingham, Dewsbury is another place. This sectarianism is everywhere, and it's something that the state and us as the public have a duty to challenge. We do not want sectarian politics penetrating, poisoning the British state.
And what about the Home Secretary? It's our understanding, isn't it, that she was aware of this ban, so she'll be feeling the political heat from this.
Yeah, it sounds like the ban was floated last week. It was one of a list of things that might have happened, the final decision taken this week, but it sounds like the Home Secretary was aware this was on the table. Now, I think, you know, there's no way in which our politicians can accept that football fans from some parts of the world cannot come here, that we cannot keep them safe, that they can't freely support their teams in this country. So it's important the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, the Labour government does whatever is necessary to make sure this match can go ahead with both sets of fans.
And do you think it's now highly likely that those fans will be welcomed to the match next month?
I can't see a world in which this is not overturned.
Every lever is being pulled.
Exactly. I mean, classic police, they will ask for more money to police this. We're expecting a meeting next week where probably that will be given the green light, but I cannot see a world in which this is allowed to go ahead, this ban.
And it seems unfortunate for West Midlands Police as well, who have unwittingly had their hand forced and essentially made a decision which they would argue was about law and order, but which has become politicised.
Well, I mean, you know, police always have a go at things becoming politicised. But if you're making controversial decisions that ban certain fans from coming to our country and freely supporting their football team, then you know what? That is politics. And it feels to me, reading about it, that they've been lent on politically by local councillors, by local MPs to enforce this ban in the first place. So this kind of cop saying, oh gosh, our job's become politicised, it doesn't really hold much truck with me. You know, yes, sometimes they will have to police events that have a political dimension, but they're there to ensure they can go ahead, that guests of our country are safe on our streets.
Most definitely. Well, I've taken a call now from Peter in Nottingham. And Peter, what do you think about this Aston Villa Israel football row? Does it reflect a wider problem in Britain's modern society? Peter, top of the morning to you, sir. We've got a bit of an issue with the line to Peter, but that's going to be the conversation that emanates from this row, is about Britain's multicultural experiment, which, you know, it's clear, isn't it, Kate, that we have a multi-ethnic society. I'm the son of Irish parentage myself, but there's a difference between a multi-ethnic society and a multicultural one. And the concept of a melting pot is now being tested to the limit.
Well, people will have different definitions of what they mean by multiculturalism. What cannot be allowed to happen in this country is that some ethnic cultural groups are made to feel unwelcome, unsafe, because other ones, clash with them because of sectarian politics. That cannot be allowed. That is not the British way, and we cannot let that poison our communities. So that is when people are describing what kind of inclusive country they think the UK should be, what is very important to note is that there are values that this country must have universally. They are not relative, and all communities must feel safe on our streets. And it's not okay for cultural boycotts like this to be gone through the back door under the guise of law and order. Well, if we can't protect and ensure that Israeli football fans are safe on our streets, what does that say about us as a country? They can't be cancelled, they can't be banned from coming here because some people who live here pose them a threat. That's not okay.
Well, we've got the line to Peter in Nottingham. Good morning, Peter. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning.
What are your thoughts on this? What does the Aston Villa Israel football row tell us about the state of modern Britain, Peter?
Well, it tells me that the country is being changed beyond all recognition, and we are going to become an Islamic state.
Now, Peter, is that not an overstatement of the situation?
No.
And what makes you say that Britain is on track to become an Islamic state? Tell me more.
We're losing control. Every day in this country, all we ever talk about is Islam and the immigration problem. As President Trump said, immigration will destroy this country from within. And it is happening before our very eyes, and we just won't admit it.
Peter, the line is not good, but your sentiment is very strong, and thank you for sharing it. Peter is echoing the remarks made by Donald Trump just a few weeks ago when he came to the UK, when he visited Scotland, his golf course in Scotland, when he said that Europe has got to stop immigration because otherwise you won't have a Europe anymore. And Peter concerned that Britain is going to become an Islamic state. So, Peter, sorry about the line, but I think you got your point across. Let me know if you disagree. 03444991000. It's all about opinions on this show. Jack is in Kent. Good morning, Jack.
Oh, hello there. Listen, you keep saying that most Muslims are decent human beings. That's probably because I'm one of your previous callers whose girlfriend is a Muslim but has never read the Quran.
Yeah.
That's probably because a lot of them either haven't read it, just as most people who call themselves Christians have a very sketchy knowledge of the Bible, especially the Old Testament. They either haven't read the Quran or they just ignore the nasty bits in the Quran and only heed the good bits, which are very similar to the writings in the Christian Gospels. But you're saying that, this term Islamism, I mean, what exactly do you mean by that? Do you mean it's an Islamist is somebody who has misinterpreted the Quran?
I suppose, is it fair to say, Jack, that you can misinterpret or overinterpret or underinterpret any religious text?
Yes, of course. Of course you can. But how do you know that, what's his Fizog Chowdhury, for instance? You're saying that his interpretation of the Quran is wrong, are you?
Well, I wonder whether it's a question of the intent, and if you consider those who are not Muslims to be worthy of death, and you are truly opposed to all Western values, then that's how I would describe Islamism. And of course, the instrument would be political violence that would be used, and that's how I would describe it. And I don't think that's the mindset of the majority of British Muslims, is it, Jack?
I mean, you're aware, are you, that Muhammad himself took to the sword. He led an army. He killed people in the furtherance of Islam, as did his followers. I mean, so that Muslims can look to their prophet for an example of the use of violence. Now, Christians, for instance, can't do that for obvious reasons, because Christ would never have led an army, and neither would have any of his original disciples. The apostles went about the world unarmed, preaching the gospel, very often at the at the expense of their own lives. But Muslims didn't do that. They attacked the West. It's not a peaceful religion, I'm afraid.
Jack, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. A fascinating conversation, which no doubt will continue. The bottom line is that what we've got at the moment, Kate, is a very restless, divided society. People are very unhappy. You've got communities that don't feel safe. Nigel Farage is clearly waiting in the wings. He wants to swoop in and become Britain's next Prime Minister. Is there anything Keir Starmer can do about the situation?
Well, yes. What can Keir Starmer do about the situation? First of all, you need to bring some kind of semblance of control to our borders. That is about tackling illegal immigration. This whole phrase of stopping the boats is also about bringing those overall migration numbers down. If you're talking about integration and what's been allowed to kind of fester in our country, I think that takes real political bravery. So we're talking about this ban on the football fans now. Another thing that emerged earlier this week was in East London, in Tower Hamlets. There was a local mosque put on a fun run, and they banned women and girls from taking part. It was only men and boys allowed to take part. In Victoria Park, this is Zone 2. You can almost see the Tower in our capital city. You can almost see the Tower of London from that area. And the mayor of Tower Hamlets, a man called Lutfur Rahman, a man who was originally removed from office or banned from standing again for a bit because of electoral fraud, but has somehow been allowed to stand again and elected again, defended that it wasn't more segregation, it was a ban of female participation. Now, I really do think that our political leaders and the arms of the state need to grapple with the things with instances like this, when they've been allowed to kind of go unchallenged, just go under the radar in local communities, and it's become increasingly accepted. And that is not okay. It's not okay for girls to be banned from running in their local park. It's not okay for Israeli fans to be banned from supporting their football match at our stadiums. Now, that takes real work and political bravery, but that's what has to happen.
And yet there is a political tension, because without the Muslim vote, Labour probably couldn't win an election.
Well, you know what? That Muslim vote, when it was falling apart at the last election, is going to crumble at the next because of the
and they
Gaza
could lose scores of MPs, couldn't they?
That's true.
Including the current health secretary.
That's true, but if Labour aren't for female participation in sports, what are they for? You cannot run scared of these people.
Most definitely. But do you think that Starmer is compromised? Has he got one hand tied behind his back when it comes to standing up to the more extremist elements of the Muslim community? This is a guy. Is it fair to say that he didn't wear a poppy when doing a video that addressed British Muslims a couple of years ago, because it was a Remembrance Weekend and he'd been photographed and pictured in his poppy, and then that same weekend he does a video designated just to British Muslims, no poppy? I mean, we'll never really know. At the time, I think his office said that it was a mistake or an oversight, but there is a perception that Starmer will pander to the Muslim community.
There is a perception of that. I mean, he just did his big Labour Party conference speech in which he tried to kind of grapple with this head-on, I suppose, where he was talking about his vision of patriotism and what that meant, and taking on Nigel Farage's vision of it.
Yeah.
But I think equally, if he wants to make his political leadership and career about his vision of integration and patriotism, then he needs to take on these extremist elements on the other side too. I really strongly think that.
Most definitely. Right, well, listen, let's move on. I mean, that is a very complex issue, but I don't know whether you could call Prince Andrew light relief. Because, there are certainly serious allegations that are of a very, very concerning nature in regard to Andrew. First of all, his association with the known late paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, his ill-judged friendship with him, and, of course, his connection with an alleged Chinese spy as well. Do you think the King's done enough to deal with his black sheep brother?
I think the King's probably done as much as he can do here. I mean, he's made the Duke of York give up his royal titles. He's totally out in the cold. No public engagements. None of the pomp and pageantry that came with his birthright as a Prince of England or of Britain. I mean, Prince Andrew, who was formerly known as the Duke of York, no one can defend his actions here. He faced very serious allegations, obviously allegations he denied, but the latest revelation in our newspaper last weekend was you know, he kept in touch with Jeffrey Epstein long after he said he had severed all ties. So he's lied. He's lied to the British public. We assume he's lied to his family, which is why this decision's been taken subsequently. You know, you just don't get to behave like that.
No, you don't. I mean, listen, you know, your beat is British politics, but really the royal family is just as riven with political conflict as the House of Commons, isn't it? And, you know, Andrew has become a political headache for King Charles, and it just threatens to spoil his reign and sort of, you know, blot his copybook a little bit as king.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're seeing King Charles go ahead on that state visit. He's going to be seeing the Pope, isn't he, soon? I mean, Prince Andrew doesn't do it's more than he doesn't do the royal family any favours. He's a kind of weight on the royal family. He's someone who's living in disgrace. And the King's made the right move here.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, it's unlikely that he'll stop being Prince, because that would require an Act of Parliament. And the bottom line is, he is Prince Andrew. His mother was Queen Elizabeth. His father was Prince Philip. So it's hard to know what other sanctions. The other issue you've got on a human level is that it's a family, and Andrew will never stop being Charles's brother.
Yes, although, like, I suspect they're not particularly close, are they? I mean, by all accounts, they're not close. And I mean, it must be strange to be brought up in a family, live in a family where it's a kind of, yes, your siblings and relatives, but it's a kind of professional trade as well. Like, that must be hard. I do wonder, he's still living in this 30-room palatial royal lodge. I do wonder who's picked up the bill for that, because I don't think Andrew's worked many days into his life.
Well, no, I wonder whether those were the terms of the deal, that Andrew said, OK, I'll give up the titles, but I keep the lodge.
Yeah, I mean, presumably so, and I suppose if he lives there quietly in exile, you know, doesn't say anything, doesn't get photographed much, you know, the royal family can live with that. Yeah. But this is a man getting his comeuppance after publicly lying.
Looking forward to tomorrow's edition of The Sun on Sunday, and I would have thought that this the Israel football row is going to be rumbling on.
Yeah, that will continue on. We're not expecting the final decision till the meeting next week, so still lots of people airing their views on that. On the paper overall, you'll expect to see a lot more coverage of the fallout from Prince Andrew.
Look forward to it. My thanks to the brilliant political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson. Check out the online edition of the show, and of course pick up the paper tomorrow from your local newsagent. So much more to come. Next up, your calls.
o'clock precisely.
You cannot protest and say that you want these people deported without that being brought up in a court of law because you're worried about the safety and protection of women and girls. But you can say that you fear Jews coming to a local football stadium and have them banned from that particular stadium. Does that not go to the very heart of the issue that we have? It's this two-tier approach to absolutely everything.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Folks, big message coming in from Mark in Selby. Good morning, Mark. Starmer must now declare a state of national emergency. We have too many immigrants within these shores who commit vile acts of terrorism, attack our women and girls, gang up on the police to get their way, all while demanding a law to make any speech against them illegal and have their own legal courts operating outside of our own judiciary. The other message that's come in, good morning, says Lynn in Essex. Good morning, Lynn. How are you today? Lynn says, I was born and bred in London and left in the early 90s. The town I grew up in was lovely, but in my early teens, many immigrants came to the area and I saw a decline in cleanliness and pride, and even then the immigrants did not speak English, nor did they show any interest in integrating. I felt like I was the foreigner in my own country, and that was back in the 80s. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to comment then because I would have been shut down as a racist. This has been going on for many years. I'm now a grandparent and fear for my granddaughter's future in this country, which I fear is being taken over by Islamists and will eventually become an Islamic state. That's a view echoed by several callers and viewers and listeners to the show. OK, folks, so I'll get to more of your thoughts on that very shortly, but let's have a look at some of the big sports stories of the day. And Martin Blackburn, who is the Sun newspaper's North West sports reporter. Hello, Martin.
Good morning, Mark. How you doing?
Very well. And the Premier League returns. Praise the Lord.
Exactly, yeah. It feels like a long time ago, Mark, that we were last involved in the Premier League. It's only 2 weeks, but yeah, I think most fans are pleased to see it back. And a nice big game to start with Nottingham Forest and Chelsea up at 12:30. A lot of pressure on Ange Postecoglou, who's still looking for his first win after 7 games as the Forest boss. Chelsea buoyed by that great win over Liverpool just before the break. So nice game to start.
Yes, he's my old manager. I'm a Spurs supporter, and right. he's not been able to hit the ground running at Nottingham Forest, and the chairman is pretty ruthless.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, they've got a good link of Marinakis and Postecoglou, you know, but they've seem to have quite a good relationship. But even so, you know, he's got to win some football matches. There's no sort of you know, he won't be given any leeway there. And he's talking in the paper today about how he always wins a trophy in his second season, which you know yourself, Mark. He's got a good record of doing that. Yeah. At the moment, it looks a long way off for Forest, but let's see.
It does. We won't forget that cup win last season. Of course not. Far be it from me, Martin, to drag you into the murky world of politics. Although, of course, football is not immune, is it? And no. The players, I understand, will be taking the knee at the Premier League matches today. What do fans think of that, do you think?
Well, I mean, it's something that we first started in 2020, during the sort of COVID times. And, you know, at one stage, it was being done every single game. Now, recently, it's obviously not been done, and it's just done occasionally now. But no, I think a lot of fans are behind it. You know, as long as it's not done every week, because then I sort of feel like it becomes a little bit meaningless if it's done every week. But just occasionally, like they do it now, I think most fans are with it.
And what do the football community make of the Aston Villa Israel row that's playing out at the moment?
It's a very difficult one, isn't it? Because a lot of fans, a lot of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans have bought tickets already and are going to be coming to the game anyway. Some of them may live here already, of course, but they're going to be coming here anyway. So the club and the authorities have a difficult decision to make there over what to do. And as my colleague said to you just before, I think there's more meetings to be had before we come to a decision on that one. It's a really difficult one, and I think it's dividing a lot of opinion at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't want to set the precedent that international fans aren't safe in Britain or welcome, do we, really, in an ideal world, I would have thought?
No, that's right, yeah. I mean, the fans, generally speaking, love to sort of come to the games over here. The European games, they're always sort of special nights. And, as he said, in an ideal world, I'm sure Villa would love to have them. But there's a lot more to it than that in this instance. And they have to make sure they get that one right.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Sport and politics have converged, Martin. Before I let you go, Gaza, of course, he's had his problems with alcohol in particular. What's the latest on his health? Because I know he's plugging his latest book, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I mean, he's done a lot of publicity recently, Mark. We've seen quite a bit of him. There was a lovely interview we did on Talk Radio with his old teammate Ali McCoy recently, and he sounds in good spirits, in good shape, but clearly he's still got his demons, and he's saying in the papers today that he's never going to be able to give up the drink, which is the thing really that has caused him so much problem over the years, and why maybe he didn't quite reach the heights that we were all going to do. And yeah, I mean, he's basically saying, he will die as Gaza, as somebody who enjoys a drink and probably drinks too much. But yeah, a shame really, because he was such a wonderful player, but like I say, he's got his demons.
He does indeed, but he's given us so many memories over the years, hasn't he, as football fans. Well, the very finest of football reporting can be found at the Sun newspaper, courtesy of Martin. Martin, thanks for the exciting preview to today's Premier League matches. Martin Blackburn is the Northwest sports reporter for the Sun newspaper. Go to the Sun for all of the top sporting exclusives. Next up, a teaching assistant who was sacked for putting up a national flag in his local area. He's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Talk Breakfast. Now, a very popular and engaging supply teacher in Thirsk in North Yorkshire claims that he lost his dream job because he was snitched upon for putting flags up around his hometown. His name is Sean Remmer, and he joins us now. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Mac. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a great pleasure to have you on the programme. What exactly happened?
So I was putting the UK, the English flag, the Welsh and the Irish and the Scottish around my local area. And I was informed by my agency that one of the schools I used to work at before had complained, and the trust who ran the two schools had said they don't want me back working for them schools anymore because I've been putting flags up around the area, which was strange because I wasn't working for them anymore. And the school that I was actually working for, a week later, they had told my agency that they no longer require me. And the agency had told me that basically one of the other teachers had spoke to the headmistress, told them about me. They'd looked at my Facebook and seen that I'd put flags up, and that I had put posts about illegal immigration and the rape gangs. And they said that I was racist. And that's why they got rid of me.
OK, I mean, calling out illegal immigration, which is a crime to enter this country, and indeed the rape gangs, which is one of the greatest sort of shameful episodes in British history. Now, neither of those things are racist. In fact, I would argue it's irresponsible not to call them out because both of those things are deeply wrong. And now you've been punished.
Absolutely. I find it disgraceful. I mean, using the word racist against me, I have a mixed race family. And it's just, I find it, they know that as well. They knew that I have a mixed race daughter and, I have a Filipino fiance. And I'm far from, everybody who knows me knows that there's no way at all I'm like that. And this is why I've been trying to push this story, Mac. I've been trying to show another side that people who do this, who put flags up, are not racist far-right people. We are normal working class men and women who want a safer country for ourselves and create a great unity within our town. And people around my area have been they've been great with it. They love it. And this morning in the market square, I've had loads of conversations, people shaking my hand and saying, keep going, Sean, we support you. So it's really nice to see.
Sean, my heart goes out to you. Has this exacted from you a financial and emotional toll?
Oh, absolutely. I've been doing it like a few years now, and it's something that I should have done years ago. I should have worked with kids before. I find it, it's going to school and the kids are there. They're like, "Oh, hi, Sean," and it really warms your heart. And I just find it, it's quite emotional because the kids were amazing, and now I don't get to see the kids anymore, and that's what really upsets me.
And were you working in primary schools?
So basically, it was a special school I was working in,
right?
And it was from age sort of like 5 up to college, and I used to work with all kinds of different children. Some were quite heavily handicapped, and to the ones who were pretty able, to live on their own really. So it was very mixed sort of bag.
And therefore, under those circumstances, with the particular needs they had, you built quite a bond with those kids, and now you've lost them and they've lost you.
Absolutely. I have a great way with children who I'm really silly and daft, and I can relate to them, and I just make them feel really good, comfortable. And every morning they always used to be Sean, hi, and it was, and that's what I miss that a great deal. And now they're telling me that it might go on my DBS because of safeguarding issues.
I mean, where can a safeguarding issue be found in flying the flag of this country and the home nations of Scotland and Wales?
Honestly, something's going seriously wrong within our teaching industry and within the country. I tell you this now, that if they're watching mainstream news and they're hearing it from the top, our Prime Minister saying people who put flags up are far-right racist. Now, if they're hearing it from the top, they're going to be like, oh, Sean is putting flags out. He's saying these about illegal immigration. He's a far right thug, and that's sort of like the sort of where it's coming from. I do believe.
I mean, you just look at the other side of it. How can you defend illegal immigration? That is the breaking of the law, with all of the societal and national security and economic consequences of it. So I don't know how you can defend breaking the law, and I don't know how you can defend the grooming gangs, who I spoke to, Sean, a lawyer that represents the victims on my old TV show, and he said that upwards of 250,000 young British girls may have been victims of these evil gangs. But somehow to call that out makes you a bad person. I would have thought, I mean, this is your livelihood as well, so you are facing a financial penalty here.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a single father, and it's quite tough. And I've tried to get another job with another agency, but they've refused me because of safeguarding issues from my previous school.
This is quite shocking. Have you got access to legal advice?
The trouble I have is that the school I was at, I didn't work for them directly.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that's their way out of getting any blame, really. So they just basically say they don't want me back.
And have you been thrown under the bus by the agency as well as the school?
No, the agency haven't said that I can't work for them anymore. It's the fact that I can't. Their area was like the school was just at the bottom of because it was Newcastle, and that's far too far away for me to work. But they had this school which was close to me, and they don't have any other in the area for me. You see,
so actually, sort of whatever happens, however this plays out, it's going to be very difficult for you to find another position based upon the practical elements of this and the geography of it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do a different job. I wanted teaching because it worked around my daughter.
Yeah.
So I had the school holidays off. I didn't have to rely on my, my mum and dad who are getting old now. Not sure what, like I said that. And the times are really good for collecting and dropping off my daughter, you see. So, but now I'm going to have to find something else again, which will disrupt all that.
Well, this is devastating, and the reason why I asked you whether the school was primary, although you said it was, from a young age right up until college, there aren't enough talented men working with young children in our schools. It's actually really hard to attract, able men to work as teachers and teaching assistants in the primary sector. So they can ill afford to lose someone like you, who clearly had such a commitment to the pupils, to those kids who no doubt miss you. And as you said, the fact that you muck around, you've got a sense of humour, and that you make that connection. Are you worried for future generations?
Oh, I am. I really am. I'm thinking of even taking my daughter out of mainstream school because it does concern me. It does concern me what's happening in our schools.
And what would you say that is? How would you describe, what is the cultural shift within schools? What's happening in schools that worries you, Sean?
We have no national identity. I think they're just mainly going, being diverse. Celebrate everybody else, but do not celebrate your own country, because we can't do that in our country. Now, I've talked to other people from other countries who I'm friends with, and one of them, he was like, we raise our flag in school on a Monday. Every Monday morning, the school used to raise the national flag, and we used to stand there and sing. And to me, that is a great way of introducing national pride into the schools. I think that would be fantastic sort of thing here. And you instill that into them as they grow older, and they will have a sense of national pride. I was putting flags up when there was a 14-year-old. She was about 14, she looked 14, and she was sticking her fingers up at me. And I thought, well, I don't think I can blame you for that. I think it's because it's what you're getting taught.
Yeah. What motivated you, Sean, to put those flags up? What was the feeling behind it from your point of view?
Yeah, I do say stuff on my Facebook, like I say, with the rate, and I was like, well, I need to do something. I need to put my money, put the money where my mouth is, and do something about it. And I'd seen it in other places. It created a great bond with everybody, and it uplifted sort of the area. So I was like, I'm going to have a go and do it. And I'll be honest with you, it really has. The kids absolutely love walking down when there's flags there. And because I've put in a mix of flags, the kids are asking about the other nations and like the Ulster flag. What is that flag? Because they've probably never even seen it before. And it's created discussion and debate. And I do really believe it's created a bit of a bond in our town.
I think it's an appalling injustice what's happened to you. I think it should be illegal. It may be illegal, Sean. Brad in Cambridge has said, Mark, that teacher needs to speak to Toby, Lord Young at the Free Speech Union. They are brilliant. It might be worth reaching out to the Free Speech Union and seeing whether they can help you in some way, Sean, because the views you have are not only uncontroversial, they're perfectly legal as well. There is no safeguarding issue. But don't forget, it was a Labour local authority that tried to get a head teacher sacked. We reported on that last weekend because she supported Reform UK. I can hear the emotion in your voice, Sean. Have you paid a sort of physical toll? How's your health? How are your emotions at the moment?
Yeah, health-wise, I'm okay. It's upset me mentally more than anything. Because the kids, it's like they help me. The kids used to help me every day, you know, and now that I don't have that bond with them every day, I don't get to see them. They used to put a smile on my face every single day. And now, you know, that's once that's been removed, you miss something in your life, don't you? So yeah, that's the way that it's affected me.
And if you had the ear of the Education Secretary right now, Bridget Phillipson, what would you say to her, Sean?
I'll be saying things need to change and fast, because the way that we're going, we're losing our children. We're going to lose them, and give it 10 years, we won't know the society with kids. It'll be gone. They'll be running wild. They'll have no national pride, no national identity, and the country will it'll get a lot worse.
And they're being told that British history is evil, that we're a very wicked country, that Britain is structurally, institutionally racist, and that there are about 100 genders.
Yeah, I mean, I asked my daughter the other day, I said, have you been taught anything about the British history? And she was like, what? I was like how we used to rule the world, you know, and we used to, you know, we implemented lots of laws around the country. If it hadn't been for our country, society wouldn't be like it was. And they're not taught anything like that whatsoever. And then I find out the other day they're getting taught Black Lives Matter as 12-year-olds at you know, high school.
There's an outpouring of support for you on the message board. Nigel in Brighton says, Mark, you should ask the sacked teacher if he could get any traction with publicising his story on the BBC. He said, I bet my mortgage the answer would have been no. The reality is our national broadcaster is culpable in gaslighting the public into believing that flying the flag is far right. And Jane says, I think everyone needs to get behind and support Sean. Jane speaks for many thousands of my viewers and listeners. Sean, my heart goes out to you. More power to you. I really hope you're able to get back into a classroom, because it's a huge injustice and it's indicative of the parlous state of our British educational system at the moment. Sean, take care, and will you stay in touch with us and keep us up to date on what's happening with your situation?
Thank you.
Yeah, take care, Sean, and all the very best. I will now tell you that Carl Battersby, the council's Director of Environment, has said, this of course is a relevant council, the local education authority where this has happened. He said, we're proud to support big national and regional occasions by flying a St George's Cross or Union flag. However, we're aware of some residents across North Yorkshire feeling uncomfortable with the number of flags as well as graffiti. This does not reflect the inclusive and celebratory tone in which displaying the flags should be intended. We've also seen numerous examples of people putting themselves at risk to display flags on highways, bridges and lamp posts. And what about the school? Welburn Hall School head teacher Marianne Best said Mr Sean Remmer worked at the school on a temporary basis as a supply teaching assistant via an education recruitment agency. I think the world's gone mad. I think the law's an ass, and that Sean should be in that classroom supporting those kids. It's a shocking injustice. Welcome to Broken Britain. More on this next.
One thing that I think that one concern that people do have is about, you know, the wider capability of espionage that comes from this super embassy, right? And that's on these alleged cables, which we haven't had confirmation of their existence yet. So it would be really, really good if the intelligence services would give us their assessment on the record of what they think those are. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's not possible because it's classified, but it seems pretty important to this decision if they think that the risk can be managed or not at all. If they don't think the risk can be managed, we shouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, Mark. That poor man, the teacher that's been cancelled for flying the flag, has been victimised. This is just wrong, says Debs. And how about this from Julie in East Yorkshire? If Sean wants a GoFundMe to help him, I will donate. What a wonderful man. Trevor, I've just heard the sad story of Sean. I think what he needs to do is run for a form as a councillor, join the Free Speech Union to take some kind of legal action. If somebody could set up a crowd fund for him, I'm sure the money would come flowing in. Thank you, Trevor. Well, I'm delighted to say now it's time for Retro Rewind with Virgin Radio's Steve Denyer. Hello, Steve.
Mark, hello, good morning.
What year have you got for us this year?
All right, massive year, 1990. Huge year. We'll talk about Gaza in a moment. We'll talk about the movie Ghosts. But Margaret Thatcher would have been 100 years old at the beginning of this week.
Yeah.
And this was the downfall. Do you remember November? I think November the 20th in 1990. She resigned. Do you remember what happened? Michael Heseltine,
I
the
do.
leadership.
Stabbed her in the back.
Yeah. Didn't she say it was treachery with a smile on its face?
Yeah.
And actually, really well played in The Crown, season 4. Gillian Anderson playing Margaret Thatcher. Brilliant. If you want to re-watch it as a dramatic thing, we had the poll tax. Obviously, we'll talk about the riots in a second. It was the poll tax. It was divisions on Europe. It was the fact that, I don't know if you remember her spitting image puppet. She just became this kind of suited demon, didn't she?
That's right, almost
more
like
and more
gangster.
severe.
Yeah. Smoking a cigar.
The cigar.
That's right, and she had that line in the House of Commons about Europe, no, no, no.
Yes.
Which stays in the memory. And of course, you know, what a character. And that was, you know, 90, the 80s were such a definitive decade, weren't they? For music, fashion, politics.
Absolutely.
So all of it ended at the really, 1990, that year was just a seismic change.
Yeah, and you know, the poll tax rise, you could feel that things were about to change. You know, 18 million people refused to pay the poll tax.
It's a few people, isn't it?
It's a lot of people. If you watch those, you know, the YouTube video, the riots, it was really violent on the streets of London. And then, of course, it went on to become the council tax, which we all pay now.
Yeah.
So it did work in the end, didn't it?
It was resolved. And it's funny, isn't it? Because she was whether you agreed with her or not, she was a political genius, 3 landslide victories, but clearly towards the end she'd lost her touch.
Yeah, and I think that resignation speech was the only time, I mean, I was 14, I remember watching that live on television. That was the only time I saw the Iron Lady crack. Just that last, you know, 15 seconds when she waved goodbye, and amazing stuff, isn't it?
She was human after all.
Exactly. Sporting-wise, we had Gaza in tears. Remember the World Cup? Everyone remember. I remember sitting down with the family watching this football match where, of course, it was against Germany. It was right up until the last moment. But he got yellow carded. Yeah. And because he'd had another incident, that was it for him. So if they had gone on to the final, he wouldn't have been playing, and he broke his heart, didn't he? It felt like the nation was crying with him.
Cried with him, and it was a cultural moment to see a grown man like that, a big, strong athlete, in tears.
Yes.
You know, men nowadays are encouraged to be touchy-feely, aren't they? But back in the day, that was a spectacle.
Do you know how old he was?
Early 20s, 25?
23.
A baby. He was a baby.
Well. And he had all that pressure, you know, the pressure of the nation on his shoulders. So it's amazing to see him back then and how good he looked, you know.
One problem, I've got a bone to pick with a colleague of yours.
OK.
Chris Evans.
Yes.
Because Chris used to take him out drinking, didn't he?
I think they were friends, weren't
they were mates.
They were, weren't they?
And he used to get in trouble with Bobby Robson because he was out with Danny Baker and your mate Chris Evans.
That's it.
So,
what a time to be alive.
We love Chris Evans, but it's his fault we didn't win the World Cup. Okay.
One Foot in the Grave started in this year and slowly keeping up appearances.
Victor Meldrew.
Yeah, so it was only Richard, who played him, was only 55 when he got that part, and he thought he was too young to play him, and apparently it was originally written for a younger person, but it worked.
Yeah,
didn't it?
What was the catchphrase?
I don't believe it.
Oh yes, I don't believe it. Peter Gardwell.
Hello. I was once in a theatre sitting behind Richard Wilson, the actor who played Victor Meldrew. And without thinking, someone said, "Look, it's Richard Wilson." I went, I don't believe it. And I thought, "Oh no, this is going to be like Father Ted.
That's all
I'm going to be slapped around the head."
That is too good. So One Foot in the Grave, and then a massive global TV show, Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean started. Do you want to know something really, really tragic? I've never watched a single episode.
Well, you
of
haven't
Mr.
lived. It's
I've
hilarious.
seen clips.
You never seen Mr. Bean?
No.
So I can tell you that I used to share an agent with him, Rowan Atkinson.
Yes.
He's made £60 million from Mr. Bean.
Just from that?
Yeah.
Because it's huge in the States, huge around the world.
There is no language barrier, so it's watching every country around the world. And so he's made a fortune, and much more than any of the movies or any of his other classic comedy.
Isn't that amazing?
But it was you got it. That's your homework for
right.
next week, is to go and do that. Keeping Our Appearances we absolutely loved, and then some big movies as well.
Julia Roberts was in Pretty Woman. Yeah, she only got paid £300,000. She struck up a deal and said, if it's successful, I'll take some of the rights. She's made $20 million.
Are you serious?
Just from that movie, but she was only paid $300,000. We also had Ghost, which is a great movie with Patrick Swayze, isn't it? Do you remember the pottery scene?
I remember
scene?
Well, I was going to recreate it on today's show with you, but apparently
we could have done
that. It would be too X-rated.
Right, okay. Should we do it after on your YouTube
Let's have a drink and then do it.
All right, then.
I've got a kiln downstairs.
I've heard that.
Listen, brilliant stuff. And the Righteous Brothers, Unchained Melody.
Off the back of the Ghost. And
good.
of course, Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You. If you watch the video, that one single tear that comes down the cheeks about 3 minutes in, it's one of the best.
One of the greatest singers of all time. And, of course, fun fact, written by